Chapter 322 The Gu family's army will not have a traitor, Part 1. As night fell, Gu Huaijiang's group momentarily stopped in the forest next to the main road to get some rest. Aside from Yu Fu and Yao Lan, who were sleeping in their carriage, everyone else sat cross-legged on the ground around a bonfire near the carriage. Gu Shubai glanced at Yu Fu's carriage, then lowered his voice. "It's fortunate that His Majesty sent Yu Fu that carriage while he was still alive. Otherwise, another trip that would require us to travel continuously might be more than her body could handle." Ever since Yu Fu came to Marquis Gu's manor, she had not gone out many times, but whenever she did, she would be traveling day and night. The young misses from other noble families were all fragile young girls at her age, while she alone had to persevere through all sorts of difficulties. Gu Huaijiang wanted to spoil her as if she was a princess, but in the end, he ended up turning her into the daughter of a general's family who was more valiant than most men. The bonfire danced in the darkness, and everyone followed his gaze, even hearing the sound of her breathing inside the carriage. Suddenly, a sound came from the forest, which attracted everyone's attention. "Who is it?" There was a large wudong nearby, and it was shaking quite a bit. It was shaking in a way that was completely different from the other trees that were swaying with the wind. Looking closely, it could be seen that someone was hidden in it. Lao Jin shouted loudly, and the girl sleeping in the carriage was woken up with a start. Rubbing her eyes, she opened the curtain and looked outside. Gu Shubai quickly retreated to the carriage. "Stay inside the carriage and don't come out. I will stay here to protect you." Yu Fu obediently nodded and lowered the curtain, then began feeling around the carriage. She pulled her poison needles out of her sleeve in case she would need them. Yao Lan lay on the seat and continued to sleep. Not even such a huge commotion could affect her sleep. Yu Fu yawned and shook her awake. "Yao Lan, stop sleeping. There might be an assassin." "Ha! Assassin?" Yao Lan was half asleep. Wiping the saliva from the corner of her mouth, she instantly sat up, put on an outer layer, and moved to the window to help Yu Fu keep an eye on the situation outside. The bow was drawn and aimed at the tree, and the person atop the tree knew that they could not escape. Dropping down, "Don't shoot. I'm Kuan Yuyang." Gu Huaijiang lowered his hand, and the bows were lowered. Sure enough, a slender girl's figure appeared and walked out from under the tree. Yu Fu heard Kuan Yuyang's name and hurriedly pulled the curtain to the side. Looking carefully, she saw a familiar figure and quickly leaped out of the carriage. "Everyone stop. Yuyang, why have you come?" Kuan Yuyang walked out of the darkness, and the light from the bonfire revealed her sorry state. It was as if she had rushed out here from the capital on her own. Seeing Yu Fu, she cried with joy, "Yu Fu, I've finally found you." The two girls came together in a hug, as everyone else put their weapons away. Yu Fu looked at her in confusion. "Yuyang, were you crying?" Kuan Yuyang was someone who rarely had a fragile temperament. She had a strong and outgoing personality that was unique to Western Kuan's women. How could she cry in front of others so easily? "Did you come from the capital? Did something happen along the way?" Kuan Yuyang shook her head. It wasn't something that happened along the way. It was something that happened at the capital. She looked toward Gu Huaijiang. "Lord Marquis Gu, there's something that I need to tell you myself. It's an incredibly urgent matter, and I ask that Lord Marquis Gu have your subordinates dismissed." She had a serious expression, and Gu Jiugu said, "Have you also come to report His Majesty's death? You already know that His Majesty has passed away." Kuan Yuyang was a little shocked, as she saw a man dressed differently from the Gu family's army step forward and cup his hands. This subordinate was sent by Lord Ji to come and ask Marquis Gu to quickly return to the capital. Kuan Yuyang nodded. She had heard of Lord Ji from Ning Tangshu. He was one of the scarcely seen honest officials in court. He would surely have found something strange to be strange and thus sent someone to inform Gu Huaijiang. She could trust Ji Daogong. "What I want to say is related to this, but it's not directly related. Gu Huaijiang lowered his voice. Madam, it's fine to say it directly. There's no need for me to dismiss my subordinates. My Gu family's army won't have any traitors. If Madam can tell this Marquis, it can be said to this Marquis' subordinates. Qin Yuyang looked around. Yan Huasher and the others had calm expressions, and they all had the same aura as Gu Huaijiang. This was probably a result of unity. Gu Shubai pointed to a spot near the bonfire. Madam has had a difficult journey. Let's sit down to speak. Qin Yuyang recounted everything that she saw and heard without neglecting anything. Hearing her hoarse voice, Yu Fu had Yalan pour her some tea. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Qin Yuyang received the tea and downed it without concern for appearances. This is all that I know. Right, I brought the piece of metal that I found in the forest. She removed the pouch from her hip and opened it up. From inside, she retrieved a metal ring. To conceal it so carefully and closely, it was clear how much she valued it. Gu Huaijiang received the ring, and a memory quickly surfaced. Qin Yuyang said, "Does Lord Marquis recognize it?" "I do." Gu Huaijiang nodded and handed the metal ring to Yan Huasher. "Take a look. Is this not the mechanism from the lotus flower arrow that falls off after the arrow is shot?" Yan Huasher, Lao Jin, and the others gathered around to take a look. They found some distinct notches in the ring's form. These notches fit perfectly with the mechanism inside the arrow. There's no mistake. This is from a lotus flower arrow. Saying it like this, it was not the second prince who deliberately made an attempt on His Majesty's life. Rather, someone gave him the lotus flower arrows, then worked from the shadows to have the arrow hit His Majesty. Qin Yuyang did not understand what they were talking about. "Lord Marquis, what exactly is this lotus flower arrow? Why did the imperial physician say that His Majesty's heart had been completely crushed?" Gu Shubai and the other young ones were also confused, and Gu Huaijiang said, "The lotus flower arrow is actually nothing new. It was created years ago by a skilled craftsman. There is a very fine mechanism hidden inside the arrow. If the person shooting the arrow is unable to shoot accurately, it can be controlled by someone controlling the mechanism. That's what allowed the second prince to improve so drastically in his archery skill. Once the arrow pierces the human body, hooks will shoot out like a lotus flower and completely shred the flesh." As he reached the end of his explanation, his voice became choked up. If His Majesty was killed by this, it's no wonder there was no time to save him before he passed away. His Majesty's heart was completely shredded before he passed. Just how much must that have hurt? Not even the pain of having one's heart gouged out could compare with having one's heart completely shredded to a paste. Gu Shubai received the metal ring. Since this thing has been around for so many years, and the second prince was unable to recognize it, could it be that none of the other people who went up the mountain were able to recognize it? Yan Huasher said, "Eldest young sir, this is normal. Not many people would recognize the lotus flower arrow. Only we older folk in the army would recognize it. This sort of arrow is accurate and deadly but expensive to make, and it takes a long time to design. In the time that it takes to make one of these, one could make tens of normal arrows, thus this sort of thing was not pushed into military use. As time passed, it was slowly forgotten. If it was not specifically brought up, if you placed this arrow in front of me now, I would not be able to immediately remember it. It turned out to be like this." It was no wonder not even Gu Shubai and the others recognized this sort of arrow. The second prince was even less likely to recognize it. If he had recognized it, he absolutely would not have been so stupid as to shoot His Majesty in front of so many people and become a paving stone for the eldest prince. The only possibility was that the eldest prince needed him to become this paving stone and that the eldest prince needed His Majesty to die. In almost an instant, everyone from Marquis Gu's manor recalled the matter of the eldest prince poisoning Emperor Ning. Chapter 323 The Same Goes for Us, Part 2. In the dark night, it was only after Kun Yuyang, who had traveled through the bitter wind, had fallen asleep inside Yu Fu's carriage that Yu Fu quietly came out. Most of the soldiers were resting against trees or stones. Only a few stood guard in the distance with their backs still perfectly straight. Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai sat next to the bonfire. Father and son were silent, as the atmosphere was unprecedentedly rigid. Gu Jiugu and Gu Hanamo had already gone to rest, while Gu Shubai did not know what he could do here. He knew that Gu Huaijiang did not like having people disturb him while he was thinking, but he also knew the affection that Gu Huaijiang had for his ruler. A loyal subject clearly knew that his ruler had been assassinated, but he was unable to be by his side to protect him. He must be feeling all kinds of regret. Yu Fu quietly came forward and sat on Gu Huaijiang's other side. Daughter and son sat to his two sides and tried to give him some strength. He just watched the dancing flames, as he recalled the previous times that he had gone. After a long time passed, he slowly said, every year during the autumn hunt, it would be father who would lead the Gu family's army in protecting His Majesty. Although His Majesty is not skilled in martial arts, he was very accurate with a bow. He liked going to hunt rare animals in the mountains. If he could hunt a bear, His Majesty would be happy for 3 months, and he would often bring it up. At that time, His Majesty was still young, and father did not have as many troops under my command. The feelings of suspicion and envy had not yet begun. Yu Fu listened to his story and imagined Emperor Ning and the head general when they were young. Ruler and subject were as close as brothers, and they worked together to protect their country. It was a story worth passing down. After reminiscing on these beautiful memories, he started blaming himself. If I had told His Majesty about my suspicions of the eldest prince when His Majesty had been poisoned, His Majesty might not have died this time. He had been treated by the deity of medicine and should have been able to live as long as the late Empress Dowager. Yu Fu and Gu Shubai spoke at almost the same time. Father, head general, this can't be blamed on you. The two exchanged a look, and Yu Fu said, last time, the eldest prince felt forced to poison His Majesty because His Majesty was about to appoint the second prince as the crown prince. This time, however, there was no reason for him to kill His Majesty. There must be someone working in the shadows. How could head general place all of the blame on yourself? Gu Shubai said, moreover, based on His Majesty's personality, it's hard to say if he would have believed father if you had said it at that time. Even if he did believe it, he might not be willing to punish the eldest prince. More importantly, we did not have evidence. Brazenly accusing the eldest prince would just cause unrest in court. Father did not do anything wrong at that time. The one in the wrong was the greedy eldest prince. The one in the wrong was the one who enticed the eldest prince into doing it again. Gu Shubai suddenly furrowed his brow. Father, did you notice something off? When did Yin Shuo start getting along with the eldest prince? Yin Shuo was the second prince's brother-in-law. Based on the relationship obtained through marriage, he should favor the second prince. But after the incident, he did not say a single word in the second prince's defense. Based on his odd behavior and how he interrogated Kun Yuyang, regardless of whether or not he framed the second prince, there was no doubt that he was biased in the eldest prince's favor. Gu Huaijiang looked at him. You're saying that Yin Shuo is the one who is at the center of this, and he's the one who made the eldest prince commit evil acts again? Yes, it's definitely him. Yu Fu thought back to the past and was instantly certain that that person was Yin Shuo. There's something that I didn't tell you. On the day of Yin Shuo and Princess Danyang's marriage at the palace, Yin Shuo, he expressed that he liked me. He said that I was the one that he wanted to marry. At that time, for the sake of having him give up, I said that if he dared to say to His Majesty that he did not want to get married, I would be willing to forgive his prior actions. I actually promised me but ended up changing his mind and gave his thanks to His Majesty. Gu Shubai sneered and said, that person is obsessed with power and status. No matter how much he loves you, he could not possibly offend His Majesty over it. But based on his personality, he could not possibly sing His Majesty's praises at a time like that. It seems that he already had a plan in mind at that time. That's why he was willing to marry Princess Danyang to solidify his position. It was for his future schemes. Yu Fu nodded. I felt the same about this too. Yao Yu also said that he was having young Miss Yin act as a honey trap to try and disrupt the formation of the cabinet, and this made me even more certain. Head General, if Yin Shua is taking these risks because his influence is being reduced by the existence of the cabinet, is it possible that he might help the eldest prince? All of these insignificant reasons added together formed a clear trail. Gu Huaijiang heavily closed his eyes. It's not just possible. It's definitely him. The three fell silent once more. They clearly knew the culprit behind Emperor Ning's murder, but they did not have enough evidence to prove it. Gu Shubai looked at the rolling hills in the distance. If we travel day and night and have good luck, we can reach the capital in 2 days. Who knows what sort of changes will have occurred in that time? Based solely on Lord Ji's influence, it might not be enough to stop them. Yu Fu looked back toward the carriage. Eldest brother, you said that nothing would happen to Uncle Ning. Is that true? It's true. Gu Shubai comforted her, saying, Ning Tangshu is not as powerless as you think. As a member of the imperial family, he naturally has his abilities. He was able to protect his wife and allow her to escape, so staying alive in the capital would not be difficult. Moreover, the eldest prince and Yin Shua aren't stupid. His wife has already escaped, so what would be the point of killing Ning Tangshu? Yu Fu found this to be reasonable. Kuin Yuyang came to them on her own but did not cry because of the difficulties encountered on the trip. She did, however, cry over Ning Tangshu's safety. She had truly married the right person. Yu Fu looked at Gu Huaijiang once more. Head General, after we get back to the capital, what do you plan to do? Gu Huaijiang opened his eyes. The brilliance in his eyes had become much dimmer. Yu Fu's heart ached for him. He put forth his best effort, and it was his loyalty that pushed him to strive for great victories on the battlefield. He initially thought that with this return to the capital, the border would be able to remain peaceful for at least a decade. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Who knew that while peace came to the border, a more frightening battlefield was waiting for him at the capital? The battlefield of people's hearts was a battlefield 10 times scarier than a battlefield where swords clashed. Here, soldiers were not the ones doing the killing. Here, people died without knowing how it happened. Who knew if Emperor Ning's corpse would be able to close its eyes? Gu Shubai looked at his no longer young father. In his many years on difficult battlefields, he had never seen Gu Huaijiang reveal this sort of expression. He said, if Lord Ji is able to keep the situation steady, and the eldest prince has not yet become the ruler, everyone in the capital should be waiting for father's return to help the situation. As long as father suspects the eldest prince, he cannot ascend the throne smoothly. If father does not say anything, the second prince would definitely be executed. Without anyone to oppose him, the eldest prince would ascend the throne without any resistance. Gu Huaijiang's attitude was particularly important. Looking at the two children keeping him company and worrying about how miserable he felt a little bit of comfort. Father is still not so old as to be that foolish. Naturally, I understand what you are talking about. The reason for not speaking up when His Majesty was poisoned was because His Majesty was saved. But now that His Majesty has passed away, as a subject, I cannot allow the culprit behind His Majesty's murder to ascend the throne. If I did, would I be worthy of my position as general? Gu Huaijiang's words were spoken with force. Gu Shubai understood that he was determined to reveal the truth. He earnestly cupped his hands and said, no matter what father decides, it will be the decision that all of us in Marquis Gu's manor will accept and the order that all of us in the Gu family's army will follow. Son will help father find out the truth and provide His Majesty with justice. Yu Fu agreed, saying, "Me too, I will do my best, even if it's just a meager amount." Father, the same goes for us. Gu Jogo and Gu Hanamo had woken up at some point and come out to quietly sit at their side. Head General, we will show our loyalty to His Majesty and will heed your orders. Yan Huasher, Lao Jin, and the others also stood up. Following this, more and more soldiers stood up. In the darkness, they were silent but resolute. It turned out that nobody was sleeping. They were all waiting for his decision. Gu Huaijiang stood up and looked at everyone. In front of these comrades who were willing to risk life and limb, all of the things that he had to say were unnecessary. He reached out and slapped Yan Huasher on the shoulder with his left hand and Lao Jin's shoulder with his right. The two old generals suddenly started laughing. The head general's hands were still so full of force. He was not old. He would definitely lead everyone in providing His Majesty with a just outcome and allow him to return to the heavens in brilliance. Even if it would not be easy. Based on In Shuo's ingenuity, it was certain that he only dared to make his move while Gu Huaijiang was away and while they were on their way back to the capital. It was possible that their chance to gather any evidence had already disappeared. No, they had a witness. Gu Huaijiang turned around. Next to Yu Fu's carriage, a girl stood with her back perfectly straight. Though this lady is from Western Kuan, His Majesty has shown me favor. Lord Marquis, if you can make use of this lady will be here. Chapter 324 Do you know what you are guilty of? Part 3. 2 days later at the crack of dawn, the group of 500 soldiers appeared outside the capital. Open the city gates. A loud shout came from the bottom of the city gates, and the city's gates were immediately opened. The soldier guarding the gate saw the banner of the Gu family's army and started tearing up. Lord Marquis Gu, you've finally come back. That's right, Marquis Gu has come back. The capital will finally be safe. The relieved voices of the city guards came from outside the carriage. With their lanterns illuminating the darkness, the people near the gates were faintly able to see the Gu family's army's banner and rushed out of the city. Lord Marquis has finally come back. With Lord Marquis here, we'll see if those bandits dare to carry on with their evil deeds. Gu Huaijiang heard this and noticed that something was off. Lifting the curtain, what happened? The soldier guarding the gate immediately reporting to Lord Marquis. After His Majesty passed away, the court has not decided on a new ruler and has instead split into two factions. One faction insists that the country cannot survive a day without a ruler and that the eldest prince should handle matters as the ruler. The other faction insisted that they wait until Lord Marquis returned to decide on the matter of the new ruler. One faction of the ministers wants the cabinet to lead court matters, while the other wants the prime minister to lead court matters. The entire situation is a mess. The capital, which was previously very safe, has started seeing an increase in robberies. The military officials and citizens were hoping that Lord Marquis would quickly return, and our hopes have finally come true. Preposterous. The usually calm Gu Huaijiang suddenly became furious, saying, no matter what sort of mess there might be in court, keeping the citizens safe is the top priority. What do they mean the country cannot survive a day without a ruler? It's obvious that a country cannot survive a day without its citizens. The safety of the people is provided for by the governor of Linen and the general of public safety. What has happened to those two? The soldiers guarding the city gates hesitated for a moment. Suddenly, they saw a girl in beautiful clothes step out of a carriage in the back. Yu Fu stepped out of the carriage and walked over to Gu Huaijiang's side. The other people who had come out were a little shocked to see her beautiful clothes. For the sake of convenience, she had dressed very simply at the border and on their trip. Who knew when she had the time to change into such beautiful clothes? The city guards immediately kneeled to pay their respects. This guard greets Princess Zhenjiang. The other onlookers were stunned and also dropped to their knees. With just one look from Yu Fu, the soldiers from the Gu family's army stepped forward to help them up. She looked into the carriage at Gu Huaijiang. With brows furrowed, she gave him a look, and the latter immediately understood why Yu Fu had come over. It was because the one to pursue the governor of Linen and the general of public safety for their mistakes should not be him. Yu Fu understood very well that different people had different roles. General, please come. This princess, as a member of the imperial family, orders you to immediately have the governor of Linen and the general of public safety come to Marquis Gu's manor to see me. If they still haven't come to see me by the time the sun is up, their time in their positions will have come to an end. The citizens nearby heard this and cheered. Yu Fu turned to Gu Huaijiang and nodded before returning to her carriage. The group then headed toward Marquis Gu's manor. Along the way, the citizens of Linen would hear their movements and light up their lanterns to look toward them. Look, Lord Marquis Gu has come back. Lord Marquis Gu has finally come back. Inside the carriage, Kun Yuyang asked Yu Fu in confusion. Lord Marquis was about to ask them about the governor of Linen and the general of public safety. Why did you stop him and ask about them in his stead? Kun Yuyang was also a princess in Western Kun, but she very rarely participated in Western Kun's court affairs. At best, she could guess what the members of the imperial harem were thinking. Yu Fu let out a sigh. As a general, the head general is responsible for military affairs. Things like court officials not carrying out their duty should not be handled by him, otherwise, there would surely be people in court who would talk about him increasing his power. In the past, head general would be very careful and would not dare interfere with this sort of thing, but this time, the citizens were the ones suffering. This is a line that he cannot accept being crossed. A thought seemed to cross Kun Yuyang's mind, so that's why I noticed Lord Marquis's tone sounding so annoyed. Yu Fu said, the citizens don't understand this. They only know that he is highly respected, and they are asking him for help. He understands the logic behind this, thus he does not dare speak up. I am the only one in Marquis Gu's manor who can speak up for head general. No matter what the situation in court is, calming down the citizens is the most important thing to take care of. Kun Yuyang was awestruck. Lord Marquis Gu is fully dedicated to the people, his country, and ruler. For you to be able to understand his intentions, is that not a great show of loyalty? Yu Fu reluctantly smiled. I, like you, am not someone from Eastern Ling. You were married to Uncle Ning, while I was adopted by the head general. From that point onward, I have been connected to Eastern Ling. To speak of loyalty, it would be more apt to say that we are doing our best for the people we love. Wouldn't you say that is the case? Kun Yuyang did not say anything. It was only after she heard the carriage come to a stop that she finally said, Yu Fu, I think, don't even think about it. Yu Fu knew what she was about to say. Yao Lan stepped out of the carriage and extended her hand. While reaching out for Yao Lan's hand, she said to Kun Yuyang, right now, Marquis Gu's manor is the safest place to be. I know that you are worried about Uncle Ning, and I will have someone deliver a message to him. If you go back to his manor now, it would only hurt him. Do you understand? Kun Yuyang was startled but had no choice but to admit that though Yu Fu was younger than her, she was more thorough in her considerations. She had no choice but to obediently follow Yu Fu out of the carriage. In front of Marquis Gu's manor's gate, Gu Wenqing stood with Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. Seeing their father and brothers return, it was as if they had been through many changes. Father, His Majesty, visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Gu Wenqing's eyes were slightly red, and Gu Huaijiang patted him on the shoulder. We already know. Let's speak inside. He stayed at Gu Huaijiang's side. Yu Fu had never seen her fourth brother so miserable. If only I had gone to the autumn hunt, His Majesty might not have ended up like this. I just had to be busy with managing the manor's affairs at that time. Not only did I not go, but Sun even stopped fifth brother and sixth brother from going. Gu Huaijiang silently sighed. You did the right thing. With no adults at the manor, it would not be safe for you to go out. That you could protect your fifth brother and sixth brother, father feel very gratified. Gu Wenqing looked at Yu Fu. He had protected Gu Xiang and Gu Yi but had not protected Yu Fu. Yu Fu deliberately acted relaxed and walked over to his side, smiling and saying, "Thank you, fourth brother, for letting me go at that time. Did you know? If not for me arriving at the border when I did, the army would have seen tens of thousands of troops die. You indirectly saved the lives of tens of thousands of the Gu family's army's troops, and look at me. Aren't I perfectly fine?" Exhausted from the long journey, Gu Huaijiang ordered everyone to go back and rest. When the sun came up and court opened, he would go to work in court. It was just that some people could not wait until the sun came up. This quick. Marquis Gu has already entered the city. The Prime Minister's manor quickly received the news. Inshuo scouts had been keeping an eye on the city gates. Upon seeing the Gu family's army, they quickly rushed back to report. Inshuo sat behind his desk in the study with a thought in mind. What was the bearing of the Gu family's army? Did you see Kun Yuyang among them? Was there anything off about them? The subordinate said with difficulty. The members of the Gu family's army had cold expressions that betrayed neither joy nor sadness. This subordinate truly could not see if there was anything off. There was also no sight of that princess from Western Kuan. Right, Princess Zhenjiang did call the governor of Linen and the general of public safety to Marquis Gu's manor. Why? Immediately after entering the city, citizens that heard the commotion rushed out. Upon finding out about the robberies and chaos in the city, Marquis Gu was infuriated, but in the end, Princess Zhenjiang came out and called for the two lords responsible for the capital's safety to go and see her. Inshuo nodded. She's very smart. Knowing that it would be inappropriate for Gu Huaijiang to handle this matter, she took it upon herself to handle it. Unfortunately, it seems that Gu Huaijiang doesn't seem to know what is appropriate for him to handle and what is inappropriate for him to handle. As he said that last sentence, he smiled contemptuously. This time, he was lucky. Yu Fu might have been able to save him this time, but if he dares to interfere with something that he should not interfere with again, he won't be so lucky the next time. Following the return of the Gu family's army to the capital, Ji Daogong's messenger also returned to his manor to report. Ji Daogong immediately got up and got changed, personally visiting Marquis Gu's manor to discuss countermeasures with Gu Huaijiang. At the same time, the governor of Linen and the general of public safety also arrived. Qian personally led Ji Daogong to Gu Huaijiang's main hall for a detailed discussion. Qi Zhou led the other two lords to the front waiting room where Yu Fu was waiting for them with a cup of tea. She held the cup but did not drink. She just repeatedly lifted the lid before putting it back down, making a clear sound when the lid and cup came into contact. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a person in blue court robes and a person in a brown military uniform come in. Qi Zhou bowed and then retreated, while Yu Fu did not look directly at the two. The two exchanged a look then hastily kneeled to report. This official is the governor of Linen, Shimen Chuang. This official is the general of public safety, Mo Huangsha. Greetings, Princess Zhenjiang. Yu Fu had a bit of an impression of the governor of Linen. When she had saved Lu Xiu said that he was a decent person. He clearly knew that they were prostitutes but was still willing to open a case. If it was any other lord, they would have been chased out. Yu Fu continued to play with the lid. She did this without any sense of rhythm, doing it quickly 10 times then slowly 10 times. This made the two people below feel very uneasy. Immediately following this, she quickly smashed the teacup in front of the two. The hot tea splashed onto the two. Do you two know what you are guilty of? Chapter 325 As expected of young madam, Part 1, they had both heard about what had happened at the city gates before coming, and both admitted their wrongdoings. Shimen Chuang wiped away the tea that had splashed onto his face. He knew that Princess Zhenjiang was fierce. Smashing a teacup was fine. It would be fine as long as a flying needle was not sent his way. Using the fact that he had interacted with Yu Fu before, he hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Princess, please allow an explanation. It is not the case that this subject was enjoying the benefits granted by His Majesty while neglecting to share His Majesty's burdens, but with His Majesty passing so suddenly, the people became uneasy. Princess, please think about it. The court officials have seen how vast the world is, yet they are still in a state of shock, so how else would the common folk react?" Continue. Shimen Chuang summoned the courage to continue. Put plainly, those thieves and criminals that have been arrested by this subject's subordinates are also common folk. When the people are uneasy, robberies will increase. When the government is overwhelmed, it is hard to keep the criminals in check. This subject knows that we subjects are responsible for the deterioration of safety in the capital, but if it's just the two of us worrying, all of the unease from the citizens is pointless. As he said this, he looked toward Imo Huangsha, and Imo Huangsha hastily cupped his hands. "That's right. Princess, please understand. It is absolutely not the case that we subjects are happy with allowing the capital to fall into this state." Yu Fu thought about what they said for a moment and felt that there was a bit of reason to their argument. "Please, get up. This princess' earlier attitude was improper. I hope that my lords will forgive me and the ignorance of my youth." Shimen Chuang and Imo Huangsha exchanged a glance. Seeing a faint smile on Yu Fu's face, they finally dared to stand up. What nonsense was this about being young and ignorant? The way in which she had smashed that hot cup of tea was not the way a young girl would act. First, she would give them the stick and then the carrot. This Princess Zhenjiang really was worthy of being conferred the title of princess by His Majesty and being considered a young miss of Marquis Gu's manner. The two quickly said, we don't dare. Princess has already treated us subjects very well." She flicked her broad sleeves and motioned for the two to sit. Qi Zhou attentively brought out new cups of tea. The preparations were inadequate. "My lords, please." Very well, even the servants in Marquis Gu's manor were so mighty, only saying that the preparations were inadequate at a time like this. If the princess did not allow them to sit, it was possible that the tea would never be brought out. Yu Fu said, "This princess understands what my lords intend to say. You two hold important positions but do not have enough power. As a result, you had no influence over what is happening in court. Naturally, the blame for not providing the citizens with peace of mind does not fall on you. Is this what you mean?" Yes, that is exactly what this official means. Princess is very understanding." Yu Fu glanced at the door. Lord Ji had come at the same time as them. Who knew how the conversation between the head general and him was going? Those were the ones who could truly provide the citizens with peace of mind. They were people who could affect the situation in court. Regardless of whether it was carrying out a thorough investigation into the assassination of His Majesty or selecting a new ruler, Yu Fu, as a younger member of the imperial family, she could only use her meager amount of nobility to share Gu Huaijiang's burdens. Thinking of this, she quickly started thinking of countermeasures. "When my lords also saw it when you came in. Lord Ji has already started discussing the capital's matters with head general. They will surely be able to think of a resolution. But before they come up with a resolution, you two can't just sit around while doing nothing. right? If all of the blame for the capital situation is placed on the lords above, would you two not just be enjoying all the benefits of your office while doing none of the work? Her gaze became sharp. Her beautiful features had concealed her sharpness, and this made others not dare to underestimate her because of her young age. Mo Huangsha immediately stood up and cupped his hands, replying to Princess, "In truth, this official has thought of a few countermeasures, but they cannot be accomplished without the necessities. Explain it, and we will see. If you really have a way, this princess is willing to help you. If you don't have one, any fourth-ranked officer from the Gu family's army will be able to carry out the general's orders. I think that regardless of whether it's the prime minister or the cabinet, they would all give face to this princess." While it was late autumn, Mo Huangsha was sweating profusely. He did not doubt Yu Fu's words in the slightest. Who in the capital did not know that Princess Zhenjiang was powerful, and who would dare to go against her wishes? If the discussion did not go well, he would need to retire prematurely. Mo Huangsha swallowed some saliva. This lowly officer believes that the first thing that we must do is increase the number of patrols, especially at night. It would be best to dispatch people who are proficient in martial arts. First, we catch a few robbers and thieves and then have them executed. That will definitely have the effect of quickly calming down the storm in the capital. Yu Fu did not say anything. After waiting for a moment, Mo Huangsha continued, "While adding more patrols, we also need to promote positive discussions in the capital. For example, since Marquis Gu has already returned, we can make use of this opportunity to say that Lord Marquis Gu will definitely be able to sort out the messy court situation and stabilize the country. Marquis Gu is the beacon of hope for the citizens. He will surely be able to quell the unrest." He looked up at Yu Fu. "It's just that this plan is one that will only work temporarily. It does not address the root of the problem. To truly calm the people down, the situation in court needs to be resolved by the great lords like Marquis Gu." Shimen Chuang heard this and said, "Princess, this official thinks that General Mo's plan is really good. The government of Linen is able to go through with it. First, we can provide the manpower to assist. Second, the members of the government office are familiar with the citizens, thus they are most suitable for spreading positivity. What does Princess think?" Yu Fu nodded. "General Mo's plan is quite good. It's just that it requires people who are proficient in martial arts. I fear that Lord Shimen's people will not be sufficient. How about this? This princess has a personal army of 200 troops that has been staying with the Board of War. The personal troops of the imperial family train with the imperial guards. If General Mo is fine with them, make use of them." Mo Huangsha said with difficulty, "Princess' personal troops are naturally great, but there aren't quite enough. In the large city of Linen, 200 troops are enough to guard one large road. I fear that the other areas won't be covered." Yu Fu said, "Don't worry about this. I will ask Lord Marquis Gu to lend you his 500 personal guards to protect the capital, but these troops can't be given to you until tomorrow. Immediately take this Princess Tally to the Board of War to retrieve the troops. Being able to secure the main road is better than doing nothing." Yaolan walked in with a golden tally in her hands. This was given to her at the time that she had been conferred her status as princess. All princes and princesses had one. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. It was just that this sort of thing was just for show for most of Eastern Ling's princesses. In Yu Fu's hands, however, it had become a proper tally. Mo Huangsha kneeled and received the tally. When he stood up, he looked joyous, to be able to receive help from the 500 troops from the Gu family's army. This general believes that the evil can be dispelled from the capital. What he did not understand was why Yu Fu told him to retrieve the soldiers from the Board of War and did not directly retrieve troops from the Gu family's army. Also, why did she need to wait until tomorrow to give him the troops? She needed the Gu family's army, and with how much Marquis Gu doted on her as if she was truly his daughter, could he possibly refuse? In the end, uncertainty was just uncertainty, and Imo Huangsha did not verbalize his question. Princess Zhenjiang was someone with her own rules and methods. She surely had her own reasons for doing things like this. What the more powerful people did was not something that a mere fourth-ranked general like him should ask about. Mo Huangsha received his orders and departed. Shi Men Chuang also bid farewell and moved to leave. This official will go and help General Mo. Word of Lord Marquis Gu's return will quickly be spread through the capital. Hold it. Yu Fu rubbed her temples. She was currently in her growth period. Not being able to get a good night's sleep was causing her head to ache. She just had to run into the dense Shi Men Chuang. You want your subordinates to spread the word that the situation in court will soon be resolved and not that Marquis Gu has returned. Shi Men Chuang looked confused. With Marquis Gu returning, is it not inevitable that the situation in court will be resolved? Yu Fu rolled her eyes at him. A single person's influence is limited. Head general is a military general and not an official responsible for the management of the country. Do you understand? Shi Men Chuang thought about what she said, and his legs started to shake from fear. Princess is brilliant, Princess is brilliant. This official absolutely did not intend to cause trouble for Lord Marquis Gu. He had the guts to do it, but before he could do anything, the members of the Gu family's army had already scared him into silence. Yu Fu said, I know. I'm just reminding you. Aside from Marquis Gu's return, you must spread the word that Lord Ji is absolutely loyal to His Majesty, the cabinet and Prime Minister make wise decisions, and the members of the inner palace are sagacious. Do you understand? Yes, this servant will go immediately. He hastily left, and Yao Lan stood to the side and yawned. Young miss, this lord is a little stupid but is not a bad person. Yu Fu helplessly said, I can't blame them for being stupid. It's already hard enough for these lower-ranked officials to do their jobs well. Wasn't the capital perfectly safe under their protection before this? This time, it's movement above them that has caused disruptions for the people below. This cannot be blamed on them. Yao Lan did not seem to understand. She just felt that the current Yu Fu seemed to be getting more and more of a grasp of the situation in court. She was like a proper princess. She was not like those princesses who simply lived comfortably. Instead, she was a princess who wielded true power. She brought out some reinvigorating tea for Yu Fu. Since young miss feels that they cannot be blamed, why did you smash that teacup immediately after they arrived? All of the servants standing outside the door were given a fright. Did they say anything? They said that young miss is so fierce, as expected of the young madam. Chapter 326 The Struggle for Power in Court, Part 2. Ji Daogong and Gu Huaijiang finally came out after the sun was fully in the sky. With the way that the two were dressed, it was clear that they would be going to court. Yu Fu quickly stepped forward to greet them. Lord Ji, head general. Ji Daogong cupped his hands. Princess Zhenjiang. Yu Fu said, head general, will you two be going to court? Gu Huaijiang nodded. Shu Bai will be going with us, while Zhou will stay in the manor to handle the manor's affairs. You have had to suffer from the long trip. Quickly go and get some rest. I can't do that yet. Head General, I want you to lend me 500 of your best troops and have them help restore order in the capital to provide the citizens with peace of mind. Gu Huaijiang remembered that Ji Daogong had said that he had run into the governor of Linen and the general of public safety when he first arrived. It seemed Yu Fu had already seen them. He nodded. Assisting in maintaining law and order in the capital is the reason for the Gu family's army's existence. Where is there any need to talk about borrowing? Yu Fu glanced at Ji Daogong, and the latter looked at her with a smile. His eyes were full of praise. She said, I will be the one handling this matter, and I was the one who made wild claims to Mo Huangsha about helping him secure the capital, but just the 200 troops from my personal guard are not enough. That's why I have come to ask Head General to borrow your troops. Though you and I are father and daughter, it would be best to have some clear distinction in who has control over which troops. Lord Ji, don't you think so? Ji Daogong ran his fingers through his beard. Princess is right. Though Head General is Princess Father in name, there is a clear distinction between ruler and subject. Head General, quickly lend the soldiers to Princess, so we may quickly go to the palace. The two really were like father and daughter, acting in perfect harmony. How could Gu Huaijiang not understand what they meant? Yu Fu had brought up in front of Ji Daogong as a precautionary measure. If anyone wanted to point at the Gu family's army to say that he was overstepping his authority, Ji Daogong would be able to act as a witness. Gu Huaijiang looked at Yu Fu for a long time but could only muster one word, Yu. The current Yu Fu was a little unfamiliar. She was well versed in political affairs, and all of her actions were well planned. In an instant, she had become an adult. The current Yu Fu was also very familiar. She was still the warm and gentle girl who did everything that she could to protect him and the members of Marquis Gu's manor. Father, Lord Ji, the sedan has already been prepared and is ready to leave for the palace. Gu Shubai came back in and gave Yu Fu a reassuring look before the three left. Once the sedan left her line of sight, Yu Fu finally covered her mouth and let out a yawn. Yalan, I'm going to sleep. Remember to wake me up when Head General gets back. After saying this, she headed toward the western wing, her eyes struggling to stay open. When she arrived at the western wing, she suddenly remembered something. Forget it, have Lien Zhu and the others wake me up. Word of Gu Huaijiang's return had already spread through the entire capital. For today's court session, the officials arrived a little earlier than usual. It was such that all court officials arrived an hour before court opened. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin simply decided to move to have the court proceedings begin early. Emperor Ning had already passed, thus the time at which court started was not important. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin, please wait a little longer. Prime Minister Yin has not yet arrived, so how can we have a proper discussion? A hint of embarrassment appeared on Senior Cabinet Minister Chen's face when a member of the eldest prince's faction spoke up. He was the cabinet minister whom His Majesty trusted the most, but because His Majesty had passed away so suddenly and before completing the cabinet, he was left in an awkward position. When it came to true influence, in front of His Majesty, he had the influence that a senior member of the cabinet would have, and the other members of the cabinet thought of him as the head of the cabinet. This put him on equal footing with the Prime Minister. But when it came to titles, while the cabinet could be said to be equal to the Prime Minister, just having one cabinet minister on his own was not enough to be equal to the Prime Minister. He deeply regretted that His Majesty did not have a chance to decide on a new ruler and finished appointing members to the cabinet before he passed. At the very least, it would not allow for those with ulterior motives to put Yin Shuo ahead of him. What sort of person was Yin Shuo? He was a prime minister who had lost His Majesty's faith. How could he possibly be worthy of His Majesty's trust? Oh, Prime Minister Yin has arrived. The sound of discourse suddenly rose from the crowd, as they saw Yin Shuo enter the hall in his red court clothes. Apologies, I did not know that my lords would come so early today. This Prime Minister seems to have come late. It was we who came early. Prime Minister, there's no need to be courteous. There's still quite some time until the hour that we usually begin. Quite a few people tried to fawn on him. As for Senior Cabinet Minister Qin, he stood at the top and felt that he could neither remain in place nor leave, as he saw Yin Shuo walk over to him. The handsome young man gave him a smile that did not reach his eyes. Minister Qin, please take your place. This Prime Minister will begin today's court proceedings. Senior Cabinet Minister Chen's aged face turned red and looked down. Most of the officials supported Yin Shuo. proof of the second prince assassinating His Majesty was conclusive. Those who supported the second prince or maintained their neutrality turned to support the eldest prince, as he was now most likely to become the new ruler. As a result, Yin Shuo's status in court rose. He and the eldest prince had formed a partnership, and those who were sharp noticed this. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin was so furious that he did not know what to say. After a long pause, he finally managed to say, His Majesty already established a cabinet and already started handing important affairs to the cabinet, and this was done because His Majesty no longer trusted Prime Minister. Now, before His Majesty's body has even become cold, Prime Minister Yin intends to take that power back from the cabinet. Gu Huaijiang had just returned, and he was coldly looking around. He did not think that the situation in court would end up like this. Now was not the time for him to step forward. He needed to see the situation fully before he could make a judgment. Yin Shuo had come up with a rebuttal to Senior Cabinet Minister Chen's words long ago. As he casually smiled, did His Majesty ever say that he no longer trusted this Prime Minister? Since time immemorial, the Prime Minister has been the one to lead the other officials. In a court without a ruler, it's natural that the Prime Minister would lead court proceedings. As for His Majesty establishing a cabinet, it was as if Yin Shuo had only just thought of the cabinet. There is indeed precedence of a cabinet taking over the Prime Minister's duties in previous courts, and the leader of the cabinet held power similar to the Prime Minister's. Senior Minister Qin, may I ask where the leader of the cabinet is? Senior Cabinet Minister Qin came from a family of scholars, yet after being humiliated by Yin Shuo, he was left completely speechless. He could do nothing but look below. Lord Marquis Gu, Lord Ji, would my lords please provide an objective view? Aside from the time that Ji Daogong had spoken up at the hunting ground, after returning to the capital, he returned to maintaining a low profile. Seeing Senior Cabinet Minister Qin ask him, he quickly waved his hand. This old one is just a member of the Imperial Censorate and, in truth, cannot be considered an integral part of the court. The reason that my lords came in so early, was it not just to hear what Lord Marquis Gu has to say? This old one trusts that based on Lord Marquis Gu's loyalty, he will definitely be able to provide everyone with a convincing answer. If Ji Daogong could not be considered an integral part of the court, who could? Senior Cabinet Minister Qin had once been his subordinate in the Imperial Censorate, thus Yin Shuo was his junior. No matter how one looked at it, he was qualified to speak on this matter. It sounded as if he did not express his attitude on this matter, but when everyone thought about it carefully, they felt that he had still expressed something. At the very least, he was saying that he had absolute faith in Gu Huaijiang. This was to say that what Gu Huaijiang had to say was absolutely vital. Gu Huaijiang looked at Gu Shubai, and the latter stepped forward with a smile. I have a foolish opinion. I wonder if Lord Ji would like to hear it. Eldest young sir, please speak without worry. Gu Shubai looked up. I feel that what Prime Minister Yin just said makes sense. The officials were surprised. When the Gu family's army had gone to fight and crossed the border to eliminate Western Kuan's army, Yin Shuo had fervently opposed Marquis Gu's manner. Those with sharp insight could tell that he had antagonistic feelings toward Marquis Gu's manner. Who knew if it was a result of a personal grudge or an official matter? Gu Shubai, however, agreed with Yin Shuo. His opinion was likely to represent Gu Huaijiang's opinion. Could it be that a hero like Lord Marquis Gu had also been overwhelmed by this situation? The part of the court that had remained steadfast like Senior Cabinet Minister Qin now turned ashen. Marquis Gu was an upright person, and they believed that they still had a chance. If Marquis Gu had been compromised, would they still have any chance of winning? Yin Shuo's eyebrows slightly twitched, as he looked at Gu Shubai with a smile. He did not believe that the people from Marquis Gu's manor would be so easy to compromise. Gu Huaijiang had been a soldier for his entire life. His resolve was not something that could be shattered. Sure enough, Gu Shubai's next words completely flipped the script. His Majesty established a cabinet to handle the Prime Minister's matters but did not appoint anyone to the position of leader of the cabinet. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin naturally cannot lead hundreds of officials on his own, thus all members of the cabinet should stand at the top for things to be proper. What does everyone think? Ji Daogong smiled while running his fingers through his beard. While smiling, he nodded his head, clearly approving of what he said. He was very reasonable, and the dying embers in Senior Cabinet Minister Chen's heart came roaring back to life, as he spoke to the ministers below, Minister Wang, Minister Liu, and everyone else, please come up. We are ministers who were personally appointed to the cabinet by His Majesty. If we back down at a time like this, how could we have the face to see His Majesty when we have passed? The ministers were a little timid. If they stepped forward now, they would surely offend the eldest prince. Once the eldest prince ascended to the throne, would he put them in troublesome situations? Chapter 327 Is what she is saying true or false? Part 3, Everyone. The members of the cabinet remained in place for an extended period of time. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin grieved the situation, stepping forward and kneeling on the ground. Minister Qin, you absolutely must not. You mustn't do this. The other officials rushed forward to try and help him up, but Senior Cabinet Minister Qin stubbornly refused to get up. Everyone, please listen to what I have to say. Everyone helplessly backed up, and Senior Cabinet Minister Qin cupped his hands toward the sky. I, Qin Chi, swear upon the ancestors of my Qin family and upon my unfilial son that if I have even the slightest inclination of increasing my personal power, I will allow my Qin family to die off without anyone to carry on the family name. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin only had one son, and he valued him more than his own life. His proclamation stunned the officials in court. He pointed up at the empty throne. His Majesty passed away a short time ago. I, Qin Chi, as someone who was personally chosen for the cabinet by His Majesty, do not dare to not show my loyalty. There were some suspicious circumstances surrounding His Majesty's death, and we absolutely must not decide on a new ruler while the truth is still unknown. I beg my fellow cabinet ministers to step forward. Fulfill the duty that His Majesty entrusted to you while he was alive and carry out your duty as an official. Tears flowed freely down his aged face. His passionate plea shocked everyone in court, including Gu Huaijiang. He never thought that a civil official could be so audacious. Minister Wang gritted his teeth and was the first to step forward, helping Senior Cabinet Minister Qin up. Immediately following this, 6 more ministers also stepped forward. With the 7 ministers standing at the top, their bearing instantly overpowered Yin Shuo. He was still young. No matter what, he could not compare with the oldest and most venerated officials in court. The eldest prince looked at Yin Shuo with a frown and thought to himself that he absolutely had to hold on. At present, the position of leading the officials was of utmost importance to him ascending the throne. He absolutely could not just give that position to those old fools. Yin Shuo suddenly took a step to the side. Since Minister Qin has sworn on the eldest young sir, Yin Shuo does not dare argue. Cabinet ministers, please lead the proceedings. After saying this, he casually descended and stood with the other civil officials. The eldest prince furrowed his brow even more, complaining to himself that Yin Shuo had given up his power to the cabinet without a fight. Only Yin Shuo understood that he had no room to fight back. While Emperor Ning was still alive, he had relied on the cabinet more than him, the prime minister, and the officials understood this. With Senior Cabinet Minister Qin swearing on his eldest son, if he did not give way, was he meant to wait for Gu Huaijiang to speak up and chase him out? Rather than that, it would be better to willingly step aside and appear virtuous. Senior Cabinet Minister Qin took a deep breath and quickly steadied himself. Marquis Gu has returned to court today. The victory at the border is all thanks to Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu truly is a great contributor to the defense of our Eastern Ling. Everyone knows how much His Majesty trusted Marquis Gu. The first thing that we must ask today is this: Marquis Gu, did His Majesty send any secret instructions or orders while he was still alive? Gu Huaijiang stepped forward and subconsciously looked outside the hole. He should not be the one to answer this question. There was someone who could provide a perfectly clear answer. Gu Shubai gave him a reassuring look. Just as Senior Cabinet Minister Qin was about to remind Gu Huaijiang to answer, a girl's voice suddenly came from outside the hole. While Father Emperor was still alive, he mentioned that he would appoint the second prince as the crown prince. Lord Marquis Gu knows about this. A girl in court clothes dragged her heavy dress along while heading toward the hole. It was only after she drew closer that everyone could see that it was Princess Danyang. Heavens, how could Princess Danyang have become so thin and look so sick? Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Before getting married, she was clearly as full-bodied as Yang Guifei. How could she have suddenly ended up looking so sick? If not for her domineering expression looking the same as it had in the past, nobody would dare to think that she was Princess Danyang. The eldest prince shot a sharp look at Yin Shuo, complaining that he was unable to even keep an eye on his own wife. She was actually able to come to court. Yin Shuo also found this quite strange. He had clearly instructed the manor's servants to keep an eye on Princess Danyang and not let her go out. How did she get into the palace? From the crowd, Gu Shubai watched Yin Shuo with a faint smile on his lips. So it was him. Princess Danyang ran in without any concern for appearances. She gasped for air while standing in the middle of the hall. Second imperial brother could not possibly have assassinated Father Emperor. He was the one who would be chosen as crown prince. How would assassinating Father Emperor in front of everyone benefit him? Does everyone really not know who stands to benefit the most from killing Father Emperor and framing second imperial brother? She raised her hand and pointed at the eldest prince. The latter could not help but feel shocked. Emperor Ning's face and voice flashed before him, but it was a stern expression and a harsh tone, denouncing him for killing his father and ruler. No, he had to be resolute. Princess Danyang did not have any evidence to prove that he was the one to kill their father and ruler. It was nothing more than speculation. He forced himself to calm down. As he forced a smile, members of the inner palace and other females are not permitted to enter the court. I heard that Sister Danyang has been sick. It would be best if you went back to the manor to recover. Someone come and escort the princess out of the palace. Princess Danyang shot Yin Shuo a fierce look. How did she end up getting sick, and how did she end up so thin? Was it not all because of Yin Shuo? The imperial guards ran in, and Princess Danyang became anxious. She dove in front of Gu Huaijiang and grabbed his foot. Uncle Gu, say something. You should know better than anyone if what Danyang said is true or false. Second imperial brother is also your nephew. Do you really want to watch him die unjustly in prison? The imperial guards arrived in front of Gu Huaijiang but did not dare act. They could only gather around him. All of the officials were focused on Gu Huaijiang. They all wanted to know if what Princess Danyang had said was true or false. Chapter 328 Child of the Empress, Part 4. Gu Huaijiang leaned over to help Princess Danyang up. The thick scent of the girl's perfume caused him to furrow his brow, as there was a certain odor mixed in with it. In an instant, he stopped thinking about it. He looked around the hall. What Princess Danyang said is not false. His Majesty did indeed convey this message to this marquis. It happened last winter. His Majesty said this in the Imperial Garden. At that time, Eunuch Gao was also present. Eunuch Gao was the palace servant whom Emperor Ning trusted the most. Everyone turned their heads and saw him walk into the hall and bow in salute, responding to "My lords, what Princess Danyang and Lord Marquis Gu said is true." This servant personally heard it. The situation had truly become messy. The person whom His Majesty was likely to appoint as Crown Prince had assassinated His Majesty. They could not have the one who had assassinated His Majesty become the new ruler, right? Absurd, this was truly absurd. The eldest prince could not hold it in and wanted to step forward, but Yin Shua gave him a look and stepped forward himself. Could this prime minister say something? Princess Danyang saw him step close and subconsciously took a step back. Fortunately, Gu Shubai was behind her and gave her a hand to keep her from falling over. With this step back, Gu Shubai remembered something. He had sent elite troops to the Prime Minister's manor to get Princess Danyang, thinking that she, as the second prince's younger sister, would be the one most anxious to clear the second prince's name. Who knew that she would look as she did now, thin and sickly? It seemed that her life in the Prime Minister's manor was quite bad. What shocked him the most was that Princess Danyang seemed to be afraid of Yin Shua in the same way that mice were scared of cats. He still recalled the scene of Princess Danyang humiliating Yin Shua at Chunhee Garden. At that time, she had been so domineering and proud. She was the princess born of Eastern Ling's empress, so why would she be afraid of Yin Shua? Gu Huaijiang said, "Prime Minister, please speak." Yin Shua bowed. Princess Danyang is this Prime Minister's wife, and this Prime Minister trusts her words and, naturally, trusts Lord Marquis Gu's words. It's just that, as Lord Marquis Gu said, His Majesty said that to you last winter. Did His Majesty bring it up after that? Gu Huaijiang paused for a moment. His Majesty never brought it up again. At that time, he fell severely ill. After waking up, he distanced himself from His Highness the eldest prince and His Highness the second prince. My lord should remember this. The officials nodded pensively. This was indeed the case. After that, Emperor Ning alienated the two princes, conferred the title of Princess Zhenjiang, and generously rewarded Gu Huaijiang. They remembered just how much favor he showed Marquis Gu's manor. Yin Shua smiled, indeed. Naturally, His Majesty did not bring up the matter of appointing a crown prince, nor did he leave any will or instructions. That means that he no longer wanted to appoint the second prince as crown prince. Since the cabinet and Lord Marquis Gu do not have any instructions from His Majesty, we can only select a worthy candidate from His Majesty's princes. The eldest prince is the eldest son. When there is no child born of the empress, the eldest has the greatest claim. Moreover, the eldest prince is also the prince with the most worthy among the princes. I believe that it would be best to quickly have the eldest prince ascend the throne. As the new ruler, he will then lead the funeral for the previous ruler. Gu Shubai said, and if there is a child of the empress? Naturally, Emperor Ning had a child by his empress. The second prince was said child born of the empress. The late empress passed away. Emperor Ning did not elevate anyone from the imperial harem to the position of empress. It was clear how highly he viewed her position. If not for the assassination, the second prince would have been more likely to have become the new ruler. Unfortunately, Yin Shua looked up at him. His Majesty's son by the empress assassinated his father and ruler. It's the same as not having a son born of the empress, no? Princess Danyang suddenly screamed at him, nonsense, second imperial brother did not assassinate his father and ruler. This was clearly a scheme cooked up by you and the eldest prince. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Smack. Yin Shua slapped her across the face. Everyone was shocked, as they all looked at him in disbelief. He actually dared to hit a daughter of the imperial family. Princess Danyang covered her face, as blood seeped from the corners of her mouth. Inshuo watched this with a cold expression. Forgive this official for my rudeness toward Princess. Since Princess married into the Prime Minister's manor, Inshuo has the responsibility of instructing Princess. At present, the court is in a chaotic state, and the officials are busy discussing matters. It is not the time for Princess to come and mess around. Guards, quickly escort Princess back to the Prime Minister's manor. Inshuo's attendants had been waiting outside the hall for quite some time. Hearing the order, they immediately entered to drag Princess out, while Princess Danyang struggled and screamed, Inshuo. If you want revenge, come at this princess. How could you be so treasonous and aid an evildoer? Her shouting quickly stopped as if her mouth had been covered up. The officials looked at each other. His Majesty had just passed away, yet Inshuo already dared to treat Princess Danyang like this. It could be seen just how fearless he was. She repeatedly said that it was the eldest prince who colluded with Inshuo to kill His Majesty and frame the second prince. Could it be that Inshuo was so afraid that she would continue speaking that he had her dragged out? Gu Shubai looked toward the entrance to the hall. Before Princess Danyang was dragged out, she had looked at him. The look in her eyes no longer had any of the admiration of the past. Now, her eyes were filled with fear and helplessness. It looked like she was crying, but even more than that, it looked like she was asking for help. It was as if she was asking that he absolutely provide the second prince with justice. He turned back to face Inshuo. If the second prince is proven to have been framed in the assassination of his father and ruler, His Majesty would still have a child born of the Empress. At that time, it would be best to choose the person who is worthy. Based on what I know, the second prince has not pleaded guilty. As such, before the truth behind who assassinated His Majesty is uncovered, a new ruler cannot be chosen. Gu Huaijiang smiled and looked around at everyone. What Shubai said is also what this marquis feels. Ministers of the cabinet, Lord Ji, and Lord Prime Minister, what do you think? Senior Cabinet Minister Qin was the first to speak. I agree. The most pressing matter at hand is investigating the truth behind His Majesty's assassination. The enthronement of a new ruler can be postponed. The other cabinet ministers blindly followed Senior Cabinet Minister Qin, agreeing to investigate Emperor Ning's assassination first. Ji Daogong laughed. This old one, as a subject, naturally will go with the cabinet's arrangements. Once again, he had indirectly expressed his support of the cabinet. It was as if there was a mountain pressing down on Inshuo's shoulders, as he was completely unable to raise his head. His smile was extremely forced. Naturally, I also wish to go along with the cabinet's arrangements. Chapter 329. Why not mention him? Part 1. The cabinet's final decision was to have the Ministry of Justice and the Imperial Court of Justice jointly try this important case. Because the second prince was His Majesty's son born by the Empress, and with a member of the imperial family joining the joint trial, Gu Huaijiang, as a loyal and high-ranking subject, would be supervising the case. For the sake of avoiding suspicion, Gu Huaijiang handed this matter to Gu Shubai to supervise. This was enough to quell everyone's complaints. As for Gu Shubai, the first thing that he had to do was to personally visit the second prince. The second prince is being held in the imperial family's prison. The Ministry of Justice and the Imperial Court of Justice started their joint trial. They have conducted many interrogations. All of the statements are here. Eldest brother, why do you still want to go and see him yourself? A large pile of statements was stacked on the desk. Under heavy scrutiny, who knew how many times the second prince had been interrogated? Each pile of testimony was half as tall as Yufu. While Gu Shubai was reading through the testimonies, she sat next to him and read along too and had nearly memorized what the second prince had said. In truth, the entirety of the testimony boiled down to one thing. He said that his arrow had clearly been shot at the wild boar, but, for some reason that he did not understand, the arrow struck His Majesty and took his life. Even after he had been put in prison, he was still in a state of confusion. None of this helped the investigation, and the second prince might know even less than they did. Gu Shubai, however, disagreed. The second prince is the person at the center of this case. Though he cannot be considered smart, he has not been stupid when fighting with the eldest prince over the years, right? Think about it. He has been framed for killing his father and ruler. Would he really have no understanding of his current situation? He casually picked up a testimony and said with a smile, "It's possible that the second prince knows that among the Ministry of Justice, the Imperial Court of Justice, and the Imperial family are people from the eldest prince's faction, thus he does not dare to tell them about certain things." Then among these people, who is part of the eldest prince's faction? Yu Fu was a girl and could not attend court. She also could not recognize the court officials. More importantly, the situation in court had changed with His Majesty's sudden passing. Most of the ones who had been firm in their choice of faction had now changed factions. More than half of the officials supported the eldest prince in some way, believing that he was the one most likely to become the new ruler, thus they started currying favor with him early. Who among the group now supported the eldest prince was something that not even Gu Shubai could tell. He shook his head. It's not like they'll have the words, "member of the eldest prince's faction," stamped on their head. It's natural that we wouldn't know. The second prince is the person at the middle of the situation, so he should know a little. That's why it's best if we go and ask him. The members of Marquis Gu's manor have always remained neutral. For this investigation into His Majesty's trial, we must thank Father for his support. The second prince might not trust others, but he will definitely trust us. Yu Fu said, "Then I'll go with eldest brother. Although I didn't really like the second prince, we are siblings in name. He seems to like me quite a bit, even giving me quite a few gifts. If I go with you, he might be more willing to speak." Gu Shubai, it seemed that Yu Fu could never understand if others liked her in the way that an older brother liked a younger sister or in the way that a man liked a woman. If not for In Shuo confessing to her on the day of his wedding, she might still be ignorant to the fact that he liked her. Forget it. Gu Shubai did not say anything. The two arrived outside the prison at Imperial Family's manor, and the guards, who had been informed about this by the cabinet, immediately opened the gates to let them in. The prison in the Imperial Family's manor was different from others because those that were locked up inside it were members of the Imperial family and their relatives. Even the prison cells were kept clean. The second prince's cell was just like a normal person's room. The only thing that revealed that it was a heavily guarded room was the presence of a heavy iron door. There was a tab that could be pulled open on the upper half of the iron door. Normally, it was used by the jailers to deliver food. Gu Shubai looked through and saw the second prince sitting on the bed in a daze. The location of this tab was too high, and Yu Fu could not look inside. In the end, he had Yu Fu just open the door. The second prince finally reacted, looking toward the door. Seeing Gu Shubai and Yu Fu, his eyes lit up. Gu Shubai looked at the guard behind him. "You can leave for now. I have something to ask the second prince." "Yes, eldest young sir, princess, please give the order if you need anything. This lowly one will wait at the end of the hall." The guard bowed then retreated, and the second prince got up from the bed. Straightening out his clothes and hair, he tried to make himself look a little more presentable. Yu Fu looked at him. He was still wearing the clothes that a prince would wear. It was beautifully embroidered, but there seemed to be a layer of dust that had accumulated on it from his time in this cell, and it would never shine again. The prince born of the Empress was previously full of metal. Now, he had shaggy facial hair, and he had become much thinner. His cheekbones were now very noticeable. Yu Fu suddenly remembered what Gu Shubai had said. He said that Princess Danyang's life in the Prime Minister's manor was also quite bad. Not only was she thin and pale, but she had also been slapped by Yin Shuo in court. As a princess of the imperial family, not to mention Princess Danyang's usual temperament, even the officials who were still loyal to His Majesty could not bear to watch it. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. She understood now that the siblings shared a fate. With Emperor Ning's death, they also fell from the heavens straight into the depths of hell. They were suffering even worse than normal civilians. Shubai, Yu Fu, why have you two come? I didn't kill Father Emperor. I really didn't kill Father and Ruler. Do you trust me? If we didn't believe you, why would we bother reviewing this case? Gu Shubai saw the table and chairs to the side and motioned to him, Your Highness, please sit. Let's take our time and speak. We specifically came here today to hear Your Highness' grievances. The second prince was a little shocked but smiled and nodded. It's no wonder the investigators have started being a little more polite to me in the past few days. I seem to hear them say that Uncle Gu has returned. Right now, aside from Uncle Gu, who else would want to investigate the truth behind Father Emperor's passing? They're just praising Ning Yizhao, thinking that by doing this, they would become subjects who have made important contributions. Gu Shubai and Yu Fu also sat down. Yu Fu saw that the cell was rather tidy, but the blanket on the bed was thin, and there was no brazier. Thus she said, Head General was ordered by the cabinet to supervise this case, and he handed this case to eldest brother. The trial will not be a sham. They will definitely provide justice for His Majesty and second prince. Before we came out, Head General had us bring some blankets and thick clothes. When I came in, I gave them to the guard to inspect. They will bring them to you later. Gu Shubai glanced at her. Gu Huaijiang would not have considered such details. It was clearly a piece of Yu Fu's kindness, yet she attributed it to Gu Huaijiang in hopes that the second prince would think well of him. It was no wonder people often said that the daughter was the one who cared most for their father. In the days since returning to the capital, Yu Fu's actions have left him feeling inferior. Sure enough, the second prince was also very moved. I knew it. In court, Uncle Gu is the one who is most loyal to Father Emperor. Aside from Uncle Gu, nobody could stand up to speak up for justice. Uncle Gu even thought of bringing me blankets. My own little sister and brother-in-law haven't even come to see me once. Please ask whatever you have to ask. I will tell you anything. The second prince truly was pitiful. If he knew about his younger sister's current situation, he would not have blamed Princess Danyang for not coming to see him. Princess Danyang needed Gu Shubai's help to even go into the palace. It was as being confined to the Prime Minister's manor. How could she have any chance to come and visit him here? As for his brother-in-law, was it not Yin Shuo and the eldest prince who sent him to prison? Gu Shubai did not tell him about this. He just nodded, and Yu Fu brought out a brush and paper to keep a record and ensure that they did not miss any of the key information that the second prince provided. Second prince, please go ahead. Where did the lotus flower arrow in your quiver come from? What lotus flower arrow? The second prince did not understand what was being talked about. All of the arrows in my quiver were prepared by the servants. Were they different from the arrows used by the others at the hunting ground? Gu Shubai furrowed his brow and exchanged a look with Yu Fu. It seemed that the eldest prince and Yin Shuo had prepared this beforehand. As soon as His Majesty passed, the second prince was arrested. This led to the second prince being completely clueless to what was happening outside. Gu Shubai said, Does second prince know that after your arrow hit His Majesty in the chest, His Majesty passed away before even reaching the camp at the bottom of the mountain? Because the arrow that you shot was a lotus flower arrow, the arrowhead contained a unique mechanism that completely destroyed His Majesty's heart. This is the component that is left behind after the arrow is shot. Your Highness, please take a look. He handed the ring that Kun Yuyang had given him to the second prince. The second prince received it and carefully examined it, finding it a little familiar. This seems to be my arrow, but it wasn't any lotus flower arrow. It was an arrow that improved accuracy. Inshuo said that he wanted me to stand out and introduce me to an expert from Jianghu. That person from Jianghu said that using this sort of arrow would allow me to improve my accuracy. After trying it out, I found that it was indeed true, but he did not say that the arrow could completely destroy someone's heart. Gu Shubai picked up on the key point of what he said. What is the name of this expert from Jianghu? Where is he now? Why did second prince's testimony not mention this person from Jianghu? Chapter 330 Some genuine gratitude would be better. Part 2. The second prince looked at him in a daze. I never knew that Father Emperor's heart was destroyed by the mechanism in the arrow. I thought that this information was irrelevant. In addition to this, using a specialized arrow to improve my accuracy is not something to be proud of, thus I did not say anything. That person was called Bai Bu Yang. He lives in an alley in the city. I will immediately write it down for you. Yu Fu hastily handed him the brush, while Gu Shubai heaved a sigh. The second prince felt nothing but regret. It seems that this person is very likely the person who killed Father Emperor. It would have been better if I had spoken up about this arrow sooner. Gu Shubai said, Second prince, there's no need to feel regretful. In truth, if you had said it earlier, it would have been pointless. You are alone in this prison, and even if there were any clues with that person, they would have been taken care of long ago. He received the written instructions from the second prince. If my judgment is correct, this area should now be vacant. We won't be able to find anything. The second prince said, I still have one other thing to tell you. I haven't told this to the people coming to record my testimony. I can only tell you two. Yu Fu was shocked and thought to herself that Gu Shubai was correct. The second prince was indeed hiding a secret. Second prince, please speak. He took a deep breath. At that time, I did not know that there was a mechanism in the arrow. I was certain that I was aiming at the wild boar, and no matter how much my aim might have deviated, it should not have been possible to hit Father Emperor on his horse. That's why I thought at that time that some martial arts expert had used Qinggong to affect the trajectory of the arrow. After thinking back, I noticed that almost everyone around us at that time was someone on Inshuo's or the eldest prince's side. Gu Shubai and the others had already suspected what the second prince had just said. It was just that they had not openly said it. He continued, Inshuo is my brother-in-law, and he's the one who recommended Bai Bu Yang to me. By framing me, Ning Yizhao stands to benefit the most. When I went to visit Danyang at the Prime Minister's manor, I happened to see Ning Yizhao visit Inshuo. I thought that there was a chance that they were working together to frame me. The second prince was not that stupid. Having been locked up for so long, he finally started suspecting Inshuo. Yu Fu helplessly put down her brush. They had already suspected these things. It was just that they lacked evidence, but aside from Bai Bu Yang, the second prince was unable to provide them with any evidence. Bai Bu Yang. This sounded like a unique name, but in the chaotic Jianghu, it would be too unlikely to find them. The two left the imperial family's manor, and Yu Fu frustratedly said, Eldest brother, if we find evidence of Inshuo and the eldest prince working together to assassinate His Majesty, will the second prince become the new ruler? Gu Shubai froze. He had never thought about this before and only nodded after a long pause. That should be the case. These two are His Majesty's only sons who had any chance of becoming the new ruler. The others are either too young or have backgrounds that are too humble. If the eldest prince is the one behind it, the second prince, as the son born of the empress, will naturally become the new ruler. Yu Fu frowned, but don't you feel that the second prince would really be a ruler who serves the people? Based on my understanding of him, he does not care for the people, nor does he tolerate others. His bearing and wisdom are also average. If not for the plot against His Majesty, we would both like the eldest prince more, isn't that right? Gu Shubai nodded. The eldest prince's bearing is indeed better. Regardless of whether it's talent or diligence, he's much better than the second prince. It's a pity that he was able to commit to something like killing his father and ruler. A person with talent but no virtue is a disaster, to the point that a talentless person would be better. Then eldest brother thinks that the second prince is talentless but has virtue. For a while, Gu Shubai did not know how to respond to her. What Yu Fu said was not wrong. As soon as they succeeded in finding evidence, they would be pushing the second prince onto the throne. The eldest prince was not a good person, but was the second prince a good person? That was without mentioning the fact that he still coveted Yu Fu. As a prince, he might not have been able to do anything about it, but once he became the ruler, he quickly regained his composure and complained to himself with a smile for thinking such improper things. Yu Fu, there's something that you should understand. We and father currently stand in the neutral camp. Even if we offend the eldest prince and some of the officials, we must get to the bottom of this case. It's not for the sake of allowing the second prince to ascend the throne but to find the truth. As a subject, who becomes the ruler should not be based on what we think. What we can do is be loyal and honest. As for who will become the new ruler after the investigation has concluded, the court will naturally have a way of determining who is worthy. It cannot be changed because of what we think. Yu Fu understood what that meant and vigorously nodded. Then what should we do now? Eldest brother said that Bai Bu Yang has most likely fled, so should we still go along with what the second prince said and check that area out? Gu Shubai smiled and patted her head. We still need to do a search. Paper can't cover up a fire. Once someone has done something, it's impossible for it to be hidden from everyone. Let's go and take a look. We might be able to find some clues. The two sat in the carriage, as it traveled along the long road. On both sides of the road, vendors sold their goods to the bustling crowd. There were people negotiating prices and people looking at fresh fruits and vegetables. Yu Fu cheerfully said, "Now this is Linen, the capital of Eastern Ling. It seems that Imo Huangsha and Shimenqing were able to take care of things properly. Security has been restored to the capital so quickly. I'm so happy." Gu Shubai looked out of the carriage window and saw soldiers patrolling the streets and alleys. With their mighty bearing, who would dare to cause trouble under their watch? Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. How is it Mo Huangsha and Shimen Chuang's hard work? It was you who contributed by dispatching the princess' personal guards and the Gu family's army soldiers. I heard that they captured some of the criminals the day before yesterday and sent them to be tried. That Shimen Chuang can be considered quite decisive. Picking the two who had committed the worst crimes, he sentenced them to be executed to make examples out of them. They were executed the same day in the square, and the other criminals have been so scared that they haven't dared to do anything. Yu Fu furrowed her brow but quickly returned to normal. Although committing robberies should not result in capital punishment, extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary methods. Only by doing this could they quell the unrest in the city. Yu Fu was benevolent but not blindly so, thus she could quickly understand the reasoning for it. They were riding in Yu Fu's carriage today, and there was a bright yellow nameplate with the name Princess Zhenjiang inscribed on it. The patrolling soldiers that saw this nameplate would all stop and salute. The civilians that saw it knew who was inside, and they all kneeled at the side of the road and wished Her Highness the Princess a long life. Yu Fu was given a start. What are they doing? What is with the grand salute? I really can't handle it. Saying this, she hastily had the guards accompanying them help the citizens get up. She then lifted the curtain and walked out. Everyone, there's no need to be so courteous. Quickly, please get up. Yu Fu complained internally about those patrolling soldiers who stopped to salute her. It let the citizens know that she was in the carriage. If she had been able to sneak through, with most of the commoners likely being unable to read, she would have left before they even realized who it was. She looked over at the patrolling soldiers and immediately saw Yan Jing. The latter smiled cheekily. "Young miss, don't blame this subordinate. It was the citizens who told us subordinates to let them know if young miss went out, so they would have a chance to thank young miss." As a member of the Gu family's army, Yan Jing felt very proud in calling her young miss. Only the subordinates of the Gu family's army could refer to Yu Fu as young miss. Others had to call her princess. This made it evident how he was different from others. As the soldiers helped the citizens along the side of the road get up, an old woman carrying a basket of vegetables said, "Many thanks, Your Highness, for making an appearance and making the capital safe again. If not for Princess sending out so many troops, all of the egg-laying hens at this old one's house would have been stolen by those criminals." A fruit seller nearby said, "That's right. This lowly one was selling fruit until late that day, and when I left the city, it was already dark. I nearly had all of the money that I earned from selling fruit stolen. It's fortunate that a soldier that was passing by caught that thief. He said that he was Princess Zhenjiang's personal guard." The citizens were mostly speaking about small daily matters that were worth very small amounts of money. These amounts were insignificant to Yu Fu, but she knew that it was what the citizens relied on to survive. Yu Fu replied to them all, smiling and saying, "As a princess of the imperial family, I receive the taxes paid by the citizens, thus it's natural that I should think of the citizens. There's no need to take it to heart. Even without me, some other lord would have provided you with justice. We lowly ones do not know about the other lords. We just know that these soldiers were dispatched by Your Highness. We don't know how else to thank Princess, so we could only kneel at the side of the road and kowtow." Who knew who shouted this from the crowd, but the citizens, who had just been helped up, dropped to their knees once more. Yu Fu did not even have a chance to stop them. She hastily looked toward Gu Shubai. Giving him a pleading look, Gu Shubai smiled and walked out, saying, "Everyone, please quickly get up. If you really wish to thank Princess," Princess was saying that she was a little thirsty. "It would be better to offer something practical." Chapter 331 Eldest Brother, Look at that crooked jujube tree, Part 3. The fruit seller immediately understood and pulled out the best and most beautiful candied date from their basket. "If Princess does not dislike it, have a taste of my fruit. It's really sweet." Yu Fu, was he sure that he was helping her and not causing her more trouble? With the fruit seller taking the lead, the other merchants on the side of the road also started to offer her their best goods. Aside from fresh produce, there were also steamed buns and other similar items. These were not expensive items, but they represented the citizens' earnest gratitude. Yu Fu vaguely understood what Gu Shubai planned and ordered for the items to be accepted. "I have already accepted everyone's feelings. In the future, I will continue to take the people's worries into consideration. I hope that everyone will be able to be at ease." The people were finally able to truly feel at ease. What Yu Fu had accepted was not their food, it was their trust. Since she was willing to accept it, it was the same as providing the people with a promise. It was a promise that she would step forward and speak up if anything similar ever happened again. She would have done this from the beginning, but it would be best to provide the people with a promise to give them a sense of security. She climbed back into the carriage, and the carriage started forward once more. Gu Shubai looked at her in approval. "Yu Fu, what would we do if you were a man?" "What do you mean?" Yu Fu was holding a skewer of candied haws. Taking a bite, the hard coating of sugar was exceptionally sweet. The haw inside was soft and sour. The sweet and sour flavors mixed together so well that it was beyond description. She immediately extended it to Gu Shubai to have a taste. Gu Shubai took a bite without receiving the skewer. if you were a man, I would have to give up the title of most talented person of the younger generation in the capital. Look at how much the citizens love you. If His Majesty was still alive, it's possible that not even he would be received so well. Yu Fu continued to eat her candied haws and seemed to have something on her mind. That's right. It must be shocking to have a princess in Eastern Ling receive this sort of support, right? If this was Northern Li or Western Kuan, women are able to do even better. Gu Shubai looked at her, and, refusing to back down, she looked back at him. Their eyes met, and the two reached a tacit understanding. The carriage suddenly came to a stop, as the carriage driver reported, "Young General, young Miss, we have arrived." The two exited the carriage and saw the alley before them. Because the alley was narrow, the soldiers had to stop the carriage outside the alley. The two exited the carriage and continued on foot until they reached the innermost part of the alley. This was the location that the second prince had written down. The courtyard gate was old and worn, and it was partially concealed. Gu Shubai reached out to push it open, and the two doors creakily opened up. This was a small courtyard. At the center of the courtyard was a short wooden stake with a wooden table. The small building only had a few small rooms, and it really resembled the sort of place that someone from Jianghu would live. The two went to the main room first. Inside, there was only a table, a chair, and a cabinet. They were all covered in a thick layer of dust, and there was basically nothing else. Gu Shubai walked toward the bedroom and even the bed had been rolled away. All that remained was an empty bed frame. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Even though it was evident that nothing had been left behind, Gu Shubai smiled and said, "It seems that the other side put in some effort for the sake of deceiving the second prince. Someone did indeed live here for a long period of time. It's just that it was not Bai Bu Yang." "Why does eldest brother say that?" Gu Shubai pointed to the middle of the courtyard. "There's a wooden stake in the courtyard, but there is no target. The person living here should be from Jianghu, but they would be training their legs and not with a bow and arrow. Look at this bed. Have you found anything odd about it?" Yu Fu looked at the barren bed frame and inspected it from top to bottom. Suddenly, she noticed an area of the paved floor that had been sunken in under the bed. She suddenly realized, it seems that this person was indeed training their legs. This is where someone would step when getting in bed. Through that person's actions, that part of the floor has started to cave in. Gu Shubai nodded and said, "Bai Bu Yang borrowed the courtyard of that martial artist and pretended that it was his own. It's very likely that he was invited into the city for some work but did not have a place of his own inside the city. At that time, he found someone and borrowed their courtyard to deceive the second prince." Yu Fu said, "Then we can investigate who used to live here. Since Bai Bu Yang sought that person out to borrow their courtyard, this person would also be a martial arts practitioner. They most likely have some sort of connection. Looking for this person will surely be more likely to succeed than going to search for Bai Bu Yang directly." This was also what Gu Shubai intended. Immediately calling for a soldier, ask the residents living within a 3-block radius of this courtyard about the person who resides in this courtyard. Take note of anything that they might have to say. Also, go and ask about which market the people living in this area frequent. The merchants at that market might have some memory of this person. Yes, this subordinate will go immediately. Yu Fu exited the courtyard and looked around before suddenly asking, "Eldest brother, do you think that Bai Bu Yang left this place after knowing that the task had been completed, or did he leave under some uncertain circumstances? For example, the eldest prince and Yin Shua wanted to kill him to have him silenced." Gu Shubai had not considered this question and looked around. Everything that could be carried away has been taken, so it's very hard to deduce the truth behind that. We don't know if it was the owner who removed everything, or if they were taken after everything had transpired. Yu Fu said, "I'm guessing that it was taken after everything transpired." The person living in this courtyard definitely left in a hurry. They are likely still alive. How do you know? Yu Fu pointed at a jujube tree in the yard. There were still a few rotten fruits on the tree, and it looked like they had been there for quite some time. Eldest brother, look at that crooked jujube tree. Chapter 332 Infiltrate the Prime Minister's Manor, Part 1. Gu Shubai looked in the direction that she was pointing. The jujube tree looked quite old. The brown and yellow trunk was leaning to one side, and the further up the tree they looked, the more the tree was leaning. At the top, a few dead leaves clung to the branches, while the rest had already fallen to the ground. Is there something wrong with this jujube tree? Yu Fu enigmatically led him below the tree and kicked the fallen leaves to the side. Eldest brother, look. There's absolutely no sign of any fruit having landed on the dirt here. It's evident that the person living here would pick the ripe fruit and not allow it to rot. Now, look at the rotting fruits above. The owner of this residence lived in poverty and would always pick the fruit to eat it or trade it for some rice. In the current situation, he left without picking the ripe fruit. It's clear that he was in a rush. Gu Shubai carefully inspected the ground. If the fruit had fallen to the ground and rotted naturally, there would surely be fruit seeds left behind, but he did not see any signs of fruit seeds. It was clear that Yu Fu's speculation was correct. He said, "This is good news. If the person living here left in a hurry, it's very likely that they have not been killed and silenced. Both of them were trained in martial arts, so it's possible that they are currently hiding somewhere. If we can find them first, we would have the all-important witness. It would be best if they could avoid using Kuan Yuyang as a witness." The first consideration was her sensitive identity. As long as the eldest prince and his faction pointed out that she was the princess of an enemy state, Kuan Yuyang's testimony would be difficult to believe. The second consideration was that she only heard others talking about it. If the eldest prince and his faction wanted to argue that they were not his subordinates, it would not be hard to deny. Kuan Yuyang was currently living in Marquis Gu's manor because they were worried about them seeking to get revenge. This caused Ning Tangshu to visit Marquis Gu's manor every day. Yu Fu stroked her chi. If Baibu Yang and the owner of this courtyard are still alive, the eldest prince will surely be devoting all of his efforts to finding him. Jianghu is vast, and we are starting so much later than the eldest prince. Will we really be able to find them first? Her words caused Gu Shubai to come up with a new train of thought. You're right. If they are still alive, it means that the eldest prince has been looking for a long time without being able to find them. Why should we start looking for them from the beginning? The ancestors can plant the trees, while the younger generation can enjoy their shade. Yu Fu mischievously pointed at him. Oh. I understand. Eldest brother is so sinister, actually thinking of having the eldest prince work for us. The so-called ancestors planting trees and younger generation enjoying them would just require some of the specialists from the Gu family's army to follow the eldest prince's subordinates. Once the eldest prince's people found Baibu Yang, they would take that opportunity to take him away. This would be much faster than if they started looking for him now. Gu Shubai raised an eyebrow and said without any remorse, "The opposition took advantage of the time when we were fighting the enemy on the border to kill our ruler, and they actually dared to use His Majesty's assassination to snatch the throne. That's truly sinister. Using sinister methods to deal with sinister people cannot be considered sinister. Then what is it called? It's called karma. Retribution is never pleasant." Inside the Prime Minister's manor, the servants were rushing around while looking very flustered. The eastern courtyard had always been lush and beautiful, but everyone in the manor did their best to avoid it for fear of bad luck. Ever since that day that Princess Danyang entered the palace to accuse the eldest prince and Yin Shuo, she had been placed under house arrest by Yin Shuo. The orders were to not allow anyone to see her. Everyone in the Prime Minister's manor served ensure. Not even the grannies and palace maids that Princess Danyang had brought with her could go out. They could do nothing but stay in the eastern courtyard and cry. Amidst the crying, Princess Danyang wore an indifferent expression, as she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Thin, dull, and haggard. She suddenly remembered Yin Jiao. Was she just like Yin Jiao when she had her beauty ruined? No, she was even worse off than her. At the very least, she still had her purity, and she did not need to love someone who hated her. She also would not be humiliated like this. She had thought that he was getting closer to her because he had started to like her. She did not realize that Yin Shuo was exacting his revenge until her body was covered in injuries. It was exactly as he had said under the osmanthus trees. He would never forget how she had humiliated him. Princess Danyang closed her eyes and thought back to the heartbreak that she had felt when she first heard that Emperor Ning had died. What had caused her to feel even more terrified was that the second prince had been framed for the murder. He was her brother. She understood very well that the second prince could not possibly have assassinated Emperor Ning. She tried to go and speak to Yin Shuo to have him help get justice for the second prince. However, while she was outside the outer studies courtyard, she happened to hear that the one to frame the second prince was Yin Shuo. After that, she was put under house arrest, and she could do nothing but cry day and night for Emperor Ning's passing and mourn the second prince's imprisonment. She had never been so aware of the fact that once Emperor Ning and the second prince were gone, she would be someone who had absolutely no backing. It was only after news of Marquis Gu's return to the capital had spread and Gu Shubai had sent someone to the Prime Minister's manor to extract her that she finally had a chance to go into the palace and speak on the second prince's behalf. What she got in return, however, was a slap from Yin Shuo. In addition to this, she was put under house arrest and heavily guarded. Everyone stopped crying. What are you crying for? She suddenly stood up and blankly looked at Diener and the others. You were all brought out of the palace by this princess. You represent this princess and the dignity of the imperial family. Even if you are going to die, you can't die while weeping. That would be letting that traitor, Yin Shuo, win. Do you understand? Her referring to Yin Shuo as a traitor scared the servants into crying even louder. Diener was the palace maid closest to her. Barely able to suppress the fear in her heart, she stepped forward to support her. It was we servants who were wrong. Princess isn't frightened in the face of danger, and we servants should learn from Princess. Princess, don't worry. The court is investigating His Majesty's assassination. With Lord Marquis Gu present, he absolutely will not allow you to continue to suffer. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Lord Marquis Gu. Princess Danyang's heart slowly started to soften. She recalled the day that she had gone into the palace. Gu Huaijiang had personally helped her up. She also thought of how Gu Shubai had stood behind her and quietly supported her. She had previously been obsessed with Gu Shubai, and she had opposed Yu Fu because of this. The people of Marquis Gu's manor should be opposed to her. She never thought that when everyone distanced themselves from her relatives, the ones to support her would be the members of Marquis Gu's manor. She reluctantly nodded and quietly said, "If anyone from Marquis Gu's manor comes again, you absolutely must tell me." In the open and in the shadows, this courtyard is full of that traitor's people. I would rather never go out than see them die trying to help me. Diener bit her lip and nodded. After a long pause, she finally said, "Princess, if Lord Marquis Gu fails, and His Highness the Second Prince can't be saved, what would happen to us?" What would happen? Princess Danyang could not help but let out a laugh, suddenly remembering the time that she had foolishly believed that Yin Shuo had fallen in love with her. Diener had expressed her concerns and confusion many times. How great would it have been if she had listened to Diener back then instead of the granny? How was that something that every newlywed woman had to go through? At that time, she had been young and naive, and it was now too late to regret it. At worst, we will die. What else could it be? Her voice was full of mourning. It was as if she was performing a play on stage. She stretched out her words before they ultimately dissipated with the wind. On the roof, a gray figure lay flat against the roof tiles without moving. At a glance, his clothes were the same color as the roof tiles, thus it was impossible to see that there was someone up there. Gu Hanamo had been laying there for quite some time. After determining that nobody has noticed him, he moved swiftly and descended, entering Princess Danyang's bed chamber through an open window. Diana was keen-eyed and noticed a figure in the bronze mirror. Just as she was about to scream, she suddenly remembered that Inshuo's people would not need to be so clandestine. Could it be someone from Marquis Gu's manor? She immediately winked at Princess Danyang. The relationship between master and servant had been built up over many years, and they had formed a tacit understanding. Though Princess Danyang did not know what had happened, she still spoke to the other servants. "You can all go out. Don't let me hear any more crying in the eastern courtyard. Do you really want me to die that badly?" A fallen phoenix was still a phoenix, and the servants did not dare to make any mistakes. They did not dare to bear the burden of a princess' death. They then retreated from the room. When they all left, Princess Danyang turned around and saw Gu Hanamo standing behind her in a set of gray clothes. He still had his usual expressionless demeanor. "Third young sir." Gu Hanamo nodded. "I might be discovered at any moment, so I will keep it brief. Father ordered me to come and ask Princess. Do you want to continue to stay in the Prime Minister's manor, or do you wish to return to the palace? If you want to return to the palace, he can make use of Yu Fu's name to get Princess out. Inshuo will have no way to stop you." Diana rejoiced upon hearing this, as she was all too eager to agree on Princess Danyang's behalf. However, she saw that her brow was tightly furrowed. She did not know what she was thinking about. "Princess, quickly respond." As long as they could return to the palace, even if Imperial Consort Xian and the eldest prince were there, at the very least, they would not dare to treat her as she had been treated in the Prime Minister's manor. They also would not need to fear for her life. It could not possibly be clearer what she should choose, so why was she still hesitating? Chapter 333 You Can Bathe, Part 2. While Princess Danyang was hesitating, Gu Hanamo stood next to the bed was focusing to listen to the movements outside. Though he had learned some of Immortals Valley's techniques from Tian Shu, and he had specifically worn clothes that were the same color as the roof tiles, he would not be able to go against multiple enemies at once. Once he was discovered, escaping was the easy part, but Inshuo would be able to use it as a topic of discussion against Marquis Gu's manor. After carefully listening for a while, he noted that there were no unusual movements outside. He then turned to face Princess Danyang. "I don't have much time. Please quickly make a decision." "Princess." Diana desperately tried to urge her once more, and she suddenly raised her head. "Third young sir, please thank Uncle Gu for his kindness on my behalf. I will not return to the palace. I will stay here." "Princess, have you gone crazy?" Diana was so frantic that tears were starting to flow, and she quickly moved to stop Gu Hanamo. "Third young sir, please wait. I beg you to let this servant try and convince Princess." Gu Hanamo frowned. Thinking of how Gu Huaijiang's intention was that he hoped Princess Danyang could return to the palace, he was not in a rush to leave. Diana was extremely grateful, as she anxiously grabbed Princess Danyang's sleeve and tightly held on. "Princess, what exactly are you thinking? You clearly have a chance to leave, so why won't you leave? If your husband really is a traitor as Princess believes, it's possible that he might kill Princess." Princess Danyang broke free from her grasp. Her face was expressionless. "If I go back now, I will become the laughingstock of the entire palace. Everyone in the palace surely knows that I was slapped in the palace by Yin Shuo. If I go back now in my pitiful state, wouldn't Imperial Consort Xian use that as an opportunity to mock me? Before this princess got married, everything in the palace went as this princess said. I absolutely will not give that petty person a chance to mock me. I would rather die in the Prime Minister's manner than go back to the palace and be humiliated. Princess. Where there is life, there is hope. You are a daughter of the imperial family. Your survival is of the utmost importance. Gu Hanamo gradually started to show signs of impatience. He lifted the curtain slightly and saw the swing in the yard swinging on its own. With some leaves suddenly falling, they slowly drifted down and landed on the swing. Gu Hanamo frowned. This is bad. Someone's noticed me. Princess Danyang was in the middle of arguing with her servant. Suddenly hearing this, she was given a fright, as she hastily started to look around for a way for Gu Hanamo to escape. Gu Hanamo already heard the sound of swords being drawn in the distance. There were at least 10 people carrying blades and at least 20 carrying swords. Who knew how many were carrying bows and arrows? Princess Danyang suddenly pointed toward the rear window. Third young sir, quickly exit through there. If you go that way, you will reach Yin Jiao's courtyard. There are very few servants in her courtyard, so you might be able to hide there for a while. This was the only option that was currently available to him. Gu Hanamo quickly flew out of the rear window. At almost the same time, Princess Danyang's door was kicked down. As the door hit the ground, dust was kicked up and filled the room. Diener let out a shrill scream, and Princess Danyang clenched her fists. Where is he? Who? She feigned ignorance but was unaware that her trembling shoulders had allowed the other side to see through her. The guards rudely pushed her aside and saw the rear window open. They must have escaped through there. Move quickly. The group left in a rush, leaving master and servant behind in a daze. Gu Hanamo had gone in the direction advised by Princess Danyang, and, sure enough, he arrived in a quiet courtyard. There was a swing in this courtyard, and it was immediately clear that a girl lived here. The entire courtyard was covered in yellow leaves that had not been cleaned up, which gave it a very desolate feeling. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Princess Danyang had said that her courtyard had very few servants. Sure enough, what she had said was true, as he did not see a single person in the courtyard. Hearing the soldiers approaching from behind, he quickly ducked into a side room. The lighting in the side room was dim, and he had just come in from a bright area. For a while, his eyes were unable to adjust to the darkness. After a moment, he was able to see a figure in the corner of the room. Who are you? The girl's voice was indifferent and cold. It was as if she was already dead. Gu Hanamo was shocked and tentatively asked, Young Miss Yin. Yin Jiao carefully thought back, and her expression finally changed. You're the third young sir. The third young sir of Marquis Gu's manor. She had previously heard Gu Jiugu mention this third young sir. Gu Hanamo had also heard Gu Jiugu talk about Yin Jiao, and he knew that she had been treated poorly by Yin Shuo. But what was with the large scar on her forehead? He looked at her forehead, and she subconsciously tried to avoid being looked at, using her hand to cover her forehead. Third young sir, why are you here? Is it because of my eldest brother? Gu Hanamo said, I came to see Princess Danyang. Who knew that I would be discovered by your eldest brother's people while we were speaking? They will be coming here soon. Yin Jiao said, though Princess Danyang is haughty, eldest brother's methods are even more reprehensible. If Lord Marquis Gu can return to court and preside over the situation, things could not be any better. Third young sir, please come with me. I have a place that you can hide. She quickly headed towards a small door at the back of the side room, and Gu Hanamo followed closely behind her. While he followed behind her, he paid attention to the movements around them. After passing through a few doors, they arrived at an embroidery room. A maidservant was standing behind a screen and tossing flower petals into some hot water. Hearing the sound of footsteps, she hastily said, "Young miss, I have already prepared the water for you. You can bathe now." As she said this, she turned around and saw Gu Hanamo standing behind her with a cold expression. She almost let out a scream in fear. "Shoo!" Yin Jiao immediately covered her mouth. "This is Marquis Gu's Manor's third young sir. Regardless of whether it's for the second young sir's sake or for the court's sake, I absolutely must hide him." Chapter 334 Kill Yin Shuo to avoid future problems. Part 3 Yin Shuo's subordinates gave chase into Yin Jiao's courtyard. Seeing that it was the young Miss courtyard, there was a bit of hesitation. Capturing that person is the top priority. The eldest young sir no longer cares about the young miss, so why should we care what she does? With one person saying this, another immediately agreed, "That's right. Capturing the expert from Marquis Gu's manor and being rewarded is more important. A young miss who isn't shown any favor is worth less than a maidservant. There's no need to worry about her." The group barged into the courtyard and searched through all of the rooms, yet there was not a single servant who came to stop them. This search continued until they reached the young miss bed chamber. Suddenly, they smelled a floral fragrance drifting out with some steam accompanied by the sound of girls laughing. "Now you've done it, Payer. You actually dared to splash water on me. I'll splash water on you too. Alright, young miss. Please forgive this servant. This servant won't dare do it again." The sound of splashing water and the fragrance of flowers caused everyone to swallow the saliva in their mouths. Without needing to look, they knew what was happening inside. Their rash movements while searching the other rooms gradually softened. They feared that they would make a loud sound that could startle the maidservant and young miss inside, as that would bring an end to the ambiguous but fragrant scene in their minds. The group looked around at each other, and one person finally said, "This is the only room that remains in the courtyard. What should we do? Do we go in or not?" They all wanted to go in but did not dare go in. A girl's reputation was not something to be messed with. Although this young miss did not have much standing in the manor, she was still the daughter of the previous prime minister. A search of her courtyard turned up nothing, so would ruining her reputation not be their deaths. But they also did not dare stop outside for fear of that person hiding inside this room. The leader said, "We clearly saw that person in gray clothes enter this courtyard. How could we not find them? If that person is inside this room, would it not be a pity to let them go so easily?" This was also true, but the scene inside was that of the young miss taking a bath. Just as that person was about to knock on the door, he suddenly heard the young miss and maidservant chat, "Young miss, you're being treated so poorly. It's about to be winter, yet the eldest young sir won't even give us a brazier. Young miss already has a scar on your forehead. What would we do if you caught a cold?" The young miss said, "There's no need to worry. I have already sent a letter back home to father. He will quickly be coming back. No matter how fiercely eldest brother might treat me, he would not dare to ignore father's instructions. When Fader returns, I will have him see." The last sentence was spoken in a sharp tone, and the people who were about to move hesitated once more. If the former master returned and found out about this, not even the eldest young sir would be able to avoid getting in trouble, much less them. No, this was not worth the trouble. The leader hesitated for a moment. "The young miss is bathing inside. I heard that the members of Marquis Gu's manor are all upright and proper gentlemen. How could they sneak in while the young miss is bathing? This seems to be true. Then let's go and search the other places." As the group left, the sound of the water being splashed slowly came to a stop. Gu Hanamo was listening to the conversation outside from the beams above and could now let out a sigh of relief. Hold it. The leader raised his hand, and the group stopped. Gu Hanamo immediately froze once more. Situated behind the screen, Yin Jiao and her maidservant sat in the tub and became anxious once more. They did not know why they would leave and then come back. They then heard a wretched laugh. Hee, I'm going to poke a hole in the window and see if it really is just the young miss and her maidservant inside. This can also serve as a way to search the room. What do you guys think? Everyone chimed in, I'll go. I have really good eyesight. The three inside let out sighs of relief. Yin Jiao hastily lowered herself further into the water, leaving only her neck and head exposed, while Gu Hanamo observed where the hole was poked in the window. Scram, scram, scram. Everyone else, get lost. Of course, I personally need to take a look. That person rubbed his hands together in a vulgar manner and approached the window. Placing his finger in his mouth, he licked it and then poked a hole that was roughly the size of a pigeon's egg in the window. There was a limit to what could be seen through such a small hole. Gu Hanamo moved quietly in the beams above to a location where he could not be spotted from the hole. That person's attention was not at all on what else was in the room. Looking over at Yin Jiao and her servant in the tub, he could only see their heads. Since they did not stand up after a while, he started to lose interest. Even showing a bit of shoulder would have been fine. Let's go. There's nobody else in the room. Let's quickly head to the next courtyard. Tell us, what did you see? Did you see the young miss? After their voices started moving further and further away, Yin Jiao and Pei quickly got out of the water and changed into clean clothes. Gu Hanamo dropped down from the beam and cupped his hands, saying, Many thanks, young Miss Yin, for the assistance. Yin Jiao quickly opened the door and looked around. It seems that they've left. Third young sir should quickly leave. They might return soon. Gu Hanamo took a few steps and then suddenly turned around. His eyes landed on the large and dark scar on Yin Jiao's forehead once more. The young miss of the dignified Prime Minister's manner being reduced to this state was truly inconceivable. Thinking about what those guards had said earlier, her life in this manner must be incredibly difficult. If Yin Shuo found out that she had helped him escape, would it be bad for her? Yin Jiao subconsciously moved to cover the scar on her forehead. Don't tell the second young sir about this. I don't want him to know that I have become so ugly. Just leave him with the memory of me when I was most beautiful. That is the only gift that I can give him. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Reporting to eldest young sir, we didn't find the person that snuck into the eastern courtyard. The group returned to the outer study to report, and Yin Shuo became furious. Idiots. There was only one person on the other side, yet you were actually unable to capture him. He had set up an elaborate net to capture anyone, for he was certain that Marquis Gu's manor would send someone to find Princess Danyang. Who knew that they would still be able to escape? The eldest prince unhappily said, With this, haven't you lost in your marriage and in the battle? I told you before to keep an eye on Danyang, yet you insisted on using her as bait to capture whoever came from Marquis Gu's manor. Where has that person from Marquis Gu's manor gone now? Where are they? Yin Shuo ignored him, flicking his sleeves and returning to his seat behind the desk. Who was it that came from Marquis Gu's manor? Was it Gu Shubai? That, the group looked around at each other, reporting to eldest young sir, we couldn't see that person's face. We could only see that he was wearing a grey coat. The eldest prince sneered with disdain. It seems that Prime Minister Yin's subordinates are this worthless. A group numbering in the tens allowed a lone opponent to escape and didn't even manage to see the opponent's face. It seems that this prince has mistakenly blamed Prime Minister Ian. Having such worthless subordinates, it's only natural to fail. The eldest prince was starting to have complaints about Ian Shua because he was starting to lose control over the situation in court. Ian Shua was already displeased, and losing face in front of him caused him to feel even more irritated. Seeing that his complexion was quite ugly, the pursuing guard immediately said, "Eldest young sir, please quell your anger. Eldest prince, please understand that it isn't a result of us being worthless. This subordinate recalls that we have searched the entire manor, and only the young Miss' side room was not searched. At that time, we heard the young Miss bathing, thus we did not dare go in." He did not reveal that he had poked a hole in the window and only told them about Ian Jiao bathing. Initially, we were willing to incur the young Miss' wrath and go in regardless, but the young Miss said to her maidservant that she already wrote a letter to the former master. If the former master were to return, I fear even eldest young sir would have been implicated. Idiot! Ian Shua stood up in anger. The young Miss has been confined to her courtyard and cannot go out. How could she possibly have written a letter to the former master? You've all been deceived by her. Quickly, immediately return to the young Miss courtyard to continue your search. He personally led the group to Ian Jiao's courtyard. Having been left behind, the eldest prince felt extremely displeased. The Prime Minister's manor did not have many people, but it had too many affairs to sort out. A younger sister and a wife. Though Ian Shua had these two family members, he did not allow anyone close to him. No matter how smart he might have been, he was still completely alone. A thought came to the eldest prince, and a sense of fear washed over him when he considered the idea of being completely alone. With someone like Ian Shua, once he helped him ascend the throne, how could he possibly have just one condition? If he restored the importance of the Prime Minister's position, would it be detrimental to his state? Would he also try to assassinate him like he had assassinated Emperor Ning? Once he succeeded, he would absolutely need to have this sort of person killed off to avoid any future problems. Right now, he would allow Ian Shua to be the one to bring him success. Ian Shua led the crowd to Ian Jiao's room and was shocked to find that she was not in the room. Her personal maidservant, Payer, was also nowhere to be found. There were signs that the closet had been disturbed. It seemed that she had packed some clothes before leaving. Ian Shua's expression reached a level of ugliness that had never been seen before. Looking at his subordinates behind him, he squinted his eyes, and his murderous intent rose. "Eldest young sir, spare us. Eldest young sir, spare us." Ian Shua's cold voice came through his gritted teeth. "Immediately send someone in the direction of Marquis Gu's manor to carry out a search. No matter what, you must bring the young Miss back. My Ian family's daughter absolutely cannot be taken away by someone." He was not worried that Ian Jiao would reveal his use of honey trap tactics, nor was he worried about her safety. What he worried about the most was Ian Jiao's secret, the one that nobody in the world aside from he and Ian Yen knew about. Chapter 335 The Hedgehog Under the Table, Part 1. Gu Hanamo had entered the Prime Minister's manor on his own but had people from Marquis Gu's manor waiting to receive him on his way back. The people sent out by Ian Shua watched the carriage depart but did not dare step forward to stop it. Any carriage with Marquis Gu's manor's name on it would attract the attention of the citizens. If they dared to step forward and stop them, would they not be signing their own death warrants? They had no choice but to return in a dejected state. Gu Hanamo led Ian Jiao into the manor. When Ian Jiao saw Marquis Gu's manor's plaque, she blankly stared at it with something seemingly on her mind. She did not know whether following Gu Hanamo today was the right choice or not. When she had told Gu Hanamo to leave, he had looked at the scar on her forehead and insisted on taking her with him. Though second brother is known for being a playboy, he is not a frivolous person who judges others based on their appearances. With me leaving, Yin Shuo will surely place the blame on you, and I would have no way of providing second brother with an explanation. It would be best if you came with me. Yin Jiao was stunned at that time, never expecting that someone as quiet as Gu Hanamo would think about how things would go for her. He even thought of taking her out of the manor. At that time, she had said, "But I don't know martial arts. If those highly trained guards come back, won't I end up as a dead weight for third young sir?" Gu Hanamo gestured for Payer to pack some clothes for her. "Don't worry. How could I take on this risk on my own? There is someone waiting for me outside the Prime Minister's manor. It won't be a problem for me to take you out of this courtyard." "Young Miss Yin. What are you thinking about?" Gu Hanamo saw her in a daze after stepping inside the manor and thought that she still had some concerns. Yin Jiao quickly shook her head. "It's nothing." He nodded. "I need to go and see father first. Young Miss Yin is a female guest, so please go and see Yu Fu first. I will send someone to let second brother know and have second brother go and find you at the western wing." Yin Jiao had not thought through whether or not she wanted to see Gu Jiu go. The scar on her forehead was her greatest concern, but she was reluctant to give up on the chance to see him. It had been nearly half a year since she had last seen him, and she had been in dire straits during this time. At the same time, he was fighting on the battlefield. They both had some bitter experiences. How many times had she seen him in her dreams? In some of the dreams, something would happen to him on the battlefield, and in some of the other dreams, he would marry someone else. Yin Jiao gently shook her head to chase away those nonsensical thoughts. "Third young sir, please go ahead." She curtsied, and Gu Hanamo cupped his hands before heading toward the main hall. "Father, son has returned." Gu Huaijiang had been looking through some reports when he saw Gu Hanamo enter. He looked him over. "Are you all right? How is Princess Danyang?" Gu Hanamo said, "Son is fine. Though I was discovered by Yin Shuo's people, it was fortunate that young Miss Yin helped son out. Princess Danyang did not wish to return to the palace, but what? But son brought young Miss Yin back. It seems that she has been mistreated by Yin Shuo this entire time, and she has been disfigured." When Gu Huaijiang heard him mention her being disfigured, he was a little shocked before nodding. "Jogu previously mentioned this girl, and she doesn't seem to be on the same path as her father and brother. She has had a difficult life, and she helped you out today. You getting her out is good too." If word got out about the Prime Minister's manor's daughter being taken away by Marquis Gu's manor's people, there would surely be a great deal of criticism. However, there was currently no way to worry about so many things. All that separated them from Yin Shuo was a single layer of window paper that had not been poked through. Such a trivial matter would not be enough to tip the scales. Gu Hanamo said, "Son has sent her to the western wing and has already told someone to have second brother go there. There are some things that she only wants to tell second brother. Father, if the truth behind young Miss Yin's background is revealed, will Yin Shuo be unable to continue causing trouble?" Gu Huaijiang looked at him. If he had considered such a thing, Gu Huaijiang would naturally have considered it too. Yin Jiao was the daughter of a general from Western Kun. If the matter of Yin Yen, Eastern Ling's former prime minister, secretly having a daughter with a female general from Western Kun was exposed, the Yin family would surely be unable to avoid trouble. Gu Huaijiang waved his hand. "This matter can be verified, but it can't be revealed to the public for the time being. Our mission is to find out the truth behind His Majesty's assassination, not to topple the Prime Minister's manor. Do you understand the difference between these two?" Gu Hanamo cupped his hands. "Yes, son understands." Yin Jiao was led to the western wing. Yu Fu and Kun Yuyang were currently chatting inside and were startled when they suddenly saw Yin Jiao. She was even thinner than before, and the most frightening thing was the dark scar on her forehead. Her previously delicate features had been completely ruined. Yu Fu stood up in confusion. Young Miss Yin. Chi Zhou reported, Young Miss, it was third young sir who directed us to bring young Miss Yin here. Young Miss Yin is a female guest. Young Miss, please take care of her for a bit. Yu Fu furrowed her brows in thought. She had heard that her third brother would be sneaking into the Prime Minister's manor today to look for Princess Danyang to discuss bringing her back to the palace. How did Yin Jiao end up being brought back? Seeing her like this, she must have suffered quite a great deal in the Prime Minister's manor. Yu Fu nodded to Chi Zhou, don't worry, young Miss Yin will be fine with me. We've troubled Steward Chi. Chi Zhou bowed and then retreated. Kuan Yuyang had never met Yin Jiao before. Seeing Yu Fu get up, she also got up. The girl before her was thin and fragile. She looked like a sentimental girl from a prominent family, but the large scar on her forehead was terrifying. It was like a piece of black coal on a field of snow. Here, it was hard to tell where there was snow and where there was coal. All she could do was sigh and lament how pristine the snow had been. Yu Fu saw Yin Jiao standing uneasily by the door and hastily stepped forward to bring her to a chair. Seeing that she was wearing thin clothes, she had Lian Zhu and the others bring a cup of hot tea and a brazier. Yin Jiao repeatedly thanked her. Yu Yang, this is Prime Minister Yin's younger sister, young Miss Yin. She is second brother's friend. Young Miss Yin, this one was formerly a princess of Western Kuan and is currently married to a member of the imperial family. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Yin Jiao quickly stood up and bowed, greetings, Madam Ning. Kuan Yuyang returned the greetings, young Miss Yin. After this greeting, the atmosphere was a little stuffy, as Yin Jiao kept her head down for fear of others looking at the wound on her forehead. Yu Fu and Kuan Yuyang wanted to ask but were afraid of making her sad. Yin Jiao looked up, when I was outside, I heard you two chatting happily. Did I disturb you too? No. Kuan Yuyang immediately shook her hand, I came to Marquis Gu's manor to take refuge. I have nothing better to do than to pester Yu Fu for information on what is happening outside. Yin Jiao thought for a bit, what a coincidence, I also came to seek refuge. Third young sir entered the manor to look for Princess Danyang but was chased by eldest brother's people into my courtyard. I hid him, and he helped me escape. Kuan Yuyang let out a sigh of relief. She initially thought that Yin Shuo's younger sister could not be any good. She never thought that she would help Gu Hanamo. Yu Fu said, many thanks, young Miss Yin, for helping third brother. May I ask young Miss Yin about how you injured your forehead and how it got so bad? Yin Jiao paused for a moment then suddenly remembered that Yu Fu was a disciple of Immortals Valley. If she was asking about the scar, she might have a way of treating it, thus she immediately spilled all of the details. After hearing everything, Yu Fu furrowed her brow, it's no wonder the scar became so bad. It turns out that you used that sort of medicine. If young Miss Yin does not mind, would you push your hair behind your ears and allow me to take a closer look? Yin Jiao bit her lip and slightly nodded. Out of sensitivity and vigilance, she did not hope for others to see the wound, and her gaze landed on Kuan Yuyang. Kuan Yuyang quickly understood, about that, Yu Fu, please take your time chatting. I'll go out for a walk. My husband might be coming to see me soon. After saying this, she tacitly left. Yu Fu watched her parting figure and helplessly shook her head. Yin Jiao reached up and brushed her hair behind her ears, fully exposing the large black scar. It was much larger than it seemed before. Yu Fu examined it while questioning her, how did this injury come to be? I fell over and hit my head on a corner of something made of wood. Yu Fu nodded, endure it for a moment. I will take a look at the situation under the scar. It might hurt a bit. She pulled out a silver needle and pierced it into the side of the scar. Yin Jiao closed her eyes from the shock of the pain. The silver needle was poked into the scar and then pulled out. The needle was covered in the stuff that lay beneath the scar, and Yu Fu examined it for a long time with the light that came in from the outside. Her expression could not be considered pretty. The injury had been around for too long, and the medicine that had been used on the girl's skin had caused a significant amount of damage. She put down the silver needle and let out a slight sigh. It would have been great if her master was here. After all, the poisons that she was proficient in were not suited to treating scars. If her master was here, he might have been able to treat Yin Jiao's face. Yin Jiao slowly opened her eyes and felt the scar on her forehead. Seeing that Yu Fu's expression was not great, her heart seemed to fill with dread. She inadvertently looked toward the door and suddenly saw a tall figure standing there. That person was tall and handsome, and his charming eyes were full of concern. His eyes were focused on Yin Jiao's forehead. Ah! She let out a shrill scream and covered her wound, as she curled into a ball under the table like a frightened hedgehog. Yu Fu let out a faint sigh. I'm going out to look for Yu Yang. You two can talk. Chapter 336. What exactly will you do? Part 2. Yin Jiao shrank beneath the table, burying her face between her knees. Yu Fu's room was very warm, and seeing that her clothes were very thin, a brazier and a foot stove were brought in. However, not even this was able to warm her. She hoped that Gu Jiugu would leave and that he would not see her current appearance. Thinking back to when he was standing at the door, he looked as valiant as ever. He should be matched with the best girl in the world. At the very least, she should be both beautiful and talented, and she should have a noble background. He should not be with someone like her, who was born of the Prime Minister's concubine. She was referred to as young miss, but her standing was not much different from that of a maidservant's. Furthermore, she was now disfigured. The current her was not worthy of Gu Jiugu. A warm hand suddenly landed on her shoulder, and Yin Jiao shuddered, quickly realizing that it was Gu Jiugu's hand. He was partially kneeling behind Yin Jiao, carefully patting her on the shoulder. Jiao, it's fine. Are you hiding because you're afraid that I'll see the wound on your face? Yin Jiao did not respond, nor did she lift her head. Gu Jiugu just took this as her admitting it. You are someone who was naturally beautiful and talented. You also have an excellent background and upbringing. You possess all of the traits that the girls of this world desire. The minor injury that you have recently sustained will soon get better. Is there any need to be afraid of seeing others? If even you don't dare to see people, how could any of the other girls in this world? Yin Jiao seemed to be a little touched by this, slowly raising her head while keeping a hand over her scar. Can my scar really be healed? Yu Fu's medical ability is already so great, but I noticed that her expression after examining my scar was not very good. Yu Fu is trained in poison, not medicine. There are some ailments that she can treat with poison, and there are some things that she can't treat. Don't worry. Even if Yu Fu can't treat your injuries, I will ask all of the doctors of the world to fix your injuries. He extended his hand to Yin Jiao. Come out. We can't keep talking while squatting like this, can we? Having received some assurances from Gu Jiugu, Yin Jiao felt a glimmer of hope flicker in her heart once more. Taking hold of his hand, she slowly got up from under the table while continuing to cover the scar on her forehead. Gu Jiugu took a closer look at her. She had become even thinner, and her clothes had become unreasonably thin. Although Gu Hanamo had secretly taken her from the Prime Minister's manor, she should not be in such a terrible state. He furrowed his brow. Just how exactly is Yin Shua treating you? Tell me without hiding anything. Yin Jiao looked hesitant. She did not want to hide anything for Yin Shua, but she was worried that Gu Jiugu would feel bad on her behalf. She said, since I have already come to Marquis Gu's manor, there's no need to bring up those things. Eldest brother has always acted in his own interest. Even when father was still here, he never gave me much consideration. Now that father is no longer here, how could things get any better with him having complete control over the Prime Minister's manor? Just as Gu Jiugu was about to speak, he suddenly heard the sound of footsteps approaching, as Lian Bai led Pei'er inside. She glanced at Yin Jiyao then bowed, "Second young sir, this is young Miss Yin's maidservant, Pei'er. She just entered through the manor's rear entrance. She said that young Miss Yin ordered her to come, thus this servant led her here." Pei'er saw Yin Jiyao and immediately stepped forward, as the master and servant pair came together in a tearful embrace. "Young Miss, this servant thought that I would never see young Miss ever again. It's fortunate that after young Miss left the manor became extremely chaotic. That allowed this servant to escape from the back of the manor." Pei'er suddenly noticed that there were signs of the scar on her forehead having been touched. "Young Miss, what happened to the wound on your head? Did you bump into something?" Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Yin Jiyao quickly shook her head. "It's fine. Princess Zhenjiang just examined it. That's why it was touched." Lian Bai stood to the side and watched the master and servant pair. Gu Jiugu waved to her. "Lian Bai, can I trouble you with getting some warm food? I see that those two are both cold and hungry. I fear that they won't be able to hold on if they don't get something to eat." Lian Bai was stunned then quickly came to her senses. "Yes, second young sir. This servant will go and make preparations immediately." She kept looking back while leaving and had no choice but to leave after the doors were shut and she could no longer see inside. "Many thanks, second young sir." Yin Jiyao bowed in thanks, and Pei'er copied this gesture. Gu Jiugu moved to stop her. "There's no need to be so courteous. Please sit. You still haven't answered my question. How exactly has Yin Shuo been treating you?" Yin Jiyao bit her lip. She did not expect Gu Jiugu to be so persistent. Pei'er saw that she was not responding and quickly said, "Second young sir, I beg you to help our young miss. Our young miss has spent every day looking forward to second young sir's return. Did you know? Our eldest young sir isn't even willing to order the servants to provide 3 full meals a day. It's just some radishes and lettuce. Young Miss only suffered that injury because he sent her to do his bidding, and because young Miss was unwilling to continue doing his bidding, he wasn't even willing to bring an imperial physician to examine her. If not for Princess Danyang's benevolence, young Miss might have starved to death. It was to such an extent. Gu Jiugu had figured that she must have been enduring a great deal of suffering in the Prime Minister's manor, but he never thought that Yin Shuo would be so merciless toward his own family, deliberately allowing his younger sister to become disfigured. Hold it, Pei'er just said that Yin Shuo had Yin Jiyao do something. He looked at Yin Jiyao. What exactly did Yin Shuo tell you to do that you would rather become disfigured than do? That humiliating memory caused Yin Jiyao to blush. That was the one thing that she did not want to remember the most. She just bit her lip and did not answer for a long time. This time, not even Pei'er dared to respond for her. If that matter was spoken of, it would damage Yin Jiyao's reputation, and, if Gu Jiugu thought less of her because of it, who could possibly still be willing to help her? Chapter 337 That Time of the Month, Part 3. In the end, all Yin Jiyao said was for him to ask Yao Yu. She believed that Gu Jiugu would definitely meet with Yao Yu after he returned. Yao Yu would not hide this from him, and it would definitely be better to hear it from Yao Yu than from herself. She found it hard to talk about. Gu Jiugu recalled Yao Yu's illness from before he had left and figured that he should go and visit her, thus he left the western wing. Arrangements were made for Yin Jiyao and her maidservant to live in a small courtyard near the western wing. Kuan Yuyang was also living in this courtyard. Both of them were young women, and they had a bit in common. The one thing that they shared most of all was how they were seeking refuge in Marquis Gu's manor, and this allowed them to understand each other a little better. After settling in, Payer asked Yin Jiao, "Young miss, why did you have the second young sir ask Miss Yao Yu? You two are rivals." If Miss Yao Yu jealously spoke negatively of young miss, how could young miss ever see second young sir ever again? Yin Jiao looked at her. Her eyes were more stern than they had ever been before. "Payer, I will tell you for the last time that you are not allowed to say anything bad about Miss Yao Yu. Do you understand?" Payer was given a fright by her stern expression. The young miss, whom she had taken care of from childhood, had never been so fierce toward her before. Even when the folk remedy that she had found made her scar worse, she had been reluctant to say anything against her. Today, however, she was being so stern with her because of Yao Yu. Yin Jiao saw the timidness in her eyes and softened her tone. "Ever since my face became like this, I have thought about many things and came to many realizations. There are many things that I no longer value, and Yao Yu is a good girl. In truth, you know this very well. You just refuse to trust her for the sake of protecting me. If not for Yao Yu coming when she did, how could young Sir Chen have given up so easily? She saved me and would not spout nonsense in front of second young Sir." Payer lowered her head with a look of remorse. "What young miss said is true. Miss Yao Yu can be considered your benefactor. This servant won't ever say anything demeaning about her in the future. Young miss, please forgive this servant this one time." Yin Jiao did not say anything. Pulling her by the hand, she sat down next to the bed, as hot air emanated from the brazier below. She looked around. The guest rooms in Marquis Gu's manor were all so exquisite, and Yu Fu sent people to deliver her many things that she could use. Even Kuan Yuyang sent her many accessories, saying that it was because she left home in a hurry and did not have a chance to bring these sorts of things. Marquis Gu's manor was an unrelated place to her, however, she found it very warm. She faintly smiled, and some of her former gentlenesses returned to her gaze. "Don't worry. Of course, I don't blame you. I have run away, and I have nobody with me aside from you. You are my maidservant, but more than that, you are my sister. You and I will need to rely on each other to survive. It's better than suffering in the Prime Minister's manor." Payer nodded with joy. Young Miss has finally returned to being like the young Miss from before. Ever since the imperial physician said that the scar on young Miss' face could not be fixed, young Miss has been quite gloomy. Now, things are better. We're now in Marquis Gu's manor. The second young sir will surely protect young Miss, so there's no need for young Miss to worry about anything. Yin Jiao forced a smile and said, "Naturally, he's a good person. If he says that he will protect me and seek a good doctor to treat me, he will definitely do it. But I can't just live off of the benevolence of Marquis Gu's manor and Princess Zhenjiang for the rest of my life." They had only just settled in, yet Yin Jiao seemed to have already begun thinking about the distant future. Payer did not want to bring up any frustrating topics and immediately changed the topic. "Young Miss, have a smell. The fragrance in this room is so nice. It smells like plums. It really matches our young Miss' otherworldly and fairy-like elegance." Plums? Yin Jiao looked toward the door. The cold autumn wind blew the fallen leaves in a scattered mess. "That's right. It's almost winter. It's about time for the plum blossoms to flower." After Yu Fu helped Yin Jiao settle in, she went to look for Gu Shubai to ask about Bai Buyang. Who knew that she would find Yan Jing when she arrived at his courtyard? Seeing Yu Fu, Yan Jing grinned like an idiot and fidgeted uncomfortably. Yu Fu stared at him. "Yan Jing, are you feeling itchy?" No, I'm not itchy." Yan Jing immediately stood upright and glanced back toward the room. His eyes were like a pan that could not hold any water, as they completely leaked the fact that he was hiding something. Yu-Fu simply chose not to go in. Eldest brother isn't inside, is he? Speak, where has he gone? Yan Zheng's face instantly turned red. He had not said anything. How did the young miss know that the young general was not inside? Yu-Fu simply took a seat in the courtyard, and a servant quickly brought out a hot cup of tea. Yan Zheng saw that she did not plan on leaving and had no choice but to slowly ease his way over. With his head lowered, he stood there like a child admitting to doing something bad. Young general is indeed not in his room, but young miss must not get angry after hearing where he has gone. Young general specifically ordered us to keep young miss calm. I can't ignore my orders. Yu-Fu pointed at a wooden chair nearby. Let's speak while seated. Yan Zheng strode over and sat down. The young general discovered the people dispatched by the eldest prince. They left Linen and headed west. We figure they're heading in the direction of Baibuyang. The young general left first thing in the morning with a group but was worried that young miss would also want to go, thus he had me stay here to keep young miss calm. Yu-Fu gnashed her teeth. We already agreed that we would investigate this matter together, yet he went off on his own and even left you here to keep an eye on me. Could it be that I would cause trouble? Saying this, she slammed the table and stood up, and Yan Zheng immediately stood up, his eyes landing on the wooden chair behind Yu-Fu. The light yellow wooden chair was quite plain. It was made of fur, and the rings could still be seen. This gave it a certain natural feeling to it. Yu-Fu muttered to herself. Eldest brother is really too terrible. When he gets back, I will need to give him a talking to. Keeping someone here specifically to keep an eye on me, at least send fifth brother or sixth brother. How could you possibly do? He was so bad at hiding things. He had been seen through without needing to say a single word. He was even worse at lying than Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. Just as Yu-Fu was thinking about this, she raised her head and saw Yan Zheng looking at her with a look of concern. She was stunned. What's wrong? Yan Zheng grabbed her arm and looked behind her. Young miss, did you get hurt? Where did you get hurt? Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Yu-Fu was completely confused. I haven't gotten hurt. What are you saying? Where do I look hurt? Yan Zheng pointed at the wooden chair behind her. Yu-Fu turned around and was stunned in place. A large patch of the wooden chair had been dyed red with blood. She frowned. I looked before sitting down. It was perfectly fine. Yan Zheng pulled her over, his mouth agape. Young miss, you have a lot of blood on you. This blood came from your body. He charged out of the courtyard. Quickly go and call an imperial physician, quickly. Young miss is hurt. Yu-Fu's mind was a mess. She felt her body but did not feel any pain. She could not even find any signs of any wounds. Who could possibly have hurt her without her realizing it? No, there had to be some sort of problem. She was currently standing in a daze when she suddenly heard Gu Shubai's voice. Yan Zheng, what happened? Yan Zheng let out a shocked cry. Young general, you've returned. This is great, quickly come and see young miss. The young miss is hurt and has lost a lot of blood. What? Gu Shubai strode toward the middle of the courtyard with 10 soldiers following behind him. They were all worried about Yu-Fu's injury, however, they found Yu-Fu standing in the middle of the courtyard. The complexion on her small face was perfectly fine, and there was absolutely no sign of any illness. One person saw the blood on the wooden chair. Young general, look. There's a lot of blood. Gu Shubai looked toward the wooden chair then shifted his gaze to Yu-Fu. He saw the hem of her goose yellow skirt soaked in blood. It resembled plums that had been frozen in winter. Yu-Fu, where did you get hurt? I don't think I got hurt. Her confused expression confirmed Gu Shubai's speculation, and the latter became extremely worried. Yan Jing, all of you leave the courtyard. Nobody is allowed to enter. Yes. Ha. Yan Zheng was confused. The young miss had suffered such a severe injury, so what was he dismissing everyone for? One more person meant a bit more manpower. Gu Shubai sharply scolded them. Ha what? Everyone, get out. Quickly. The group did not understand but had no choice but to obediently leave. Gu Shubai picked Yu Fu up and carried her into the room. He spoke cautiously, lie down first and don't move. I will have someone call Lian Zhu and Lian Bai over. Saying this, he turned around and left the room. Yu Fu was extremely puzzled, not understanding why Gu Shubai had such an expression. That expression was very hard to explain. It seemed to be embarrassment. No, how could that be? What would he have to be embarrassed about? Just as she was about to get up and go out and clarify the situation, Gu Shubai brought a blanket in and used it to push her back down. After spreading the blanket out for her, he brought in some warm water for her. It was just plain water and not tea. A girl should avoid getting cold at a time like this. Just obediently stay here and don't move. Wait for Lian Zhu, Lian Bai, and the others to come first. I will have the kitchen prepare some soup for you to drink. A time like this for girls. An explosion boomed in Yu Fu's head. No matter how confused she might have been, she could now guess what had happened to her. She had actually had her period, and it had happened in the courtyard in front of over 10 grown men. Chapter 338 The Entire Manor Knows, Part 1. How could she keep laying down at a time like this? As if laying on a bed of needles, Yu Fu struggled to try and sit up. Unfortunately, the double-layered quilt was too heavy, and she was unable to sit up. Gu Shubai pushed her back down with a single finger. Just obediently lay here. You don't understand these things, and I don't understand too much about them either. Let's wait for Lian Zhu and the others to arrive to know what to do. Before then, just lie here. Yu Fu complained to herself. Look at you, warm water and thick blankets. It doesn't look like you don't understand at all. She embarrassedly said, but I will make your bed dirty. It seems that your Eastern Ling treats this sort of thing as a taboo. With me getting your bed dirty, are you not afraid of bad luck? Gu Shubai tapped her forehead with a smile. What bad luck? You are the joy of Marquis Gu's manor. You've saved father's life and my life countless times. What bad luck could possibly come from you? But, there are no buts. If the bed sheets get dirty, they can be washed. Have you forgotten that year when you fell into the water when seeing the sights around Linen? At that time, you ended up catching a bit of a cold. At a time like this, you absolutely cannot catch a cold. His tone did not tolerate any refusal, and he tucked in the corner of her blanket. Yu Fu suddenly recalled what Yan Jing had said earlier about him going out today, right? Why did eldest brother come back so soon? Where's Bai Buyang? Gu Shubai curled the corners of his lips up. He's already been brought back. He's currently settled into the guest room. This quickly. Yu Fu was elated. What exactly happened? Quickly tell me. Gu Shubai lowered his voice as if worried about waking the red boy and explained the situation. After leaving Bai Buyang's courtyard last time, I sent some people to monitor the eldest prince's manor. The eldest prince dispatched a large number of troops from Linen disguised as thieves. From that, I knew that it should be related to Bai Buyang, thus I led a group out of the city in pursuit. Arriving at this point, Yu Fu pouted, and Gu Shubai felt a little helpless. The matter was time-sensitive. Moreover, I was worried about your safety. That's why I didn't bring you along. It was so pressing that you didn't have time to bring me along, yet you had time to arrange for Yanjing to console me, humph. Gu Shubai was temporarily at a loss for words. Yu Fu was no longer the young girl who could be comforted with just a few words, and she had immediately seen through his excuses. Fortunately, Yu Fu did not seem to mind too much. Eldest brother, keep going. What happened after leaving the city? Gu Shubai said, after leaving the city, we followed the eldest prince's people to a farm. It's about to be winter, and, as you said, Bai Bu Yang lives a life of poverty. Facing the difficult conditions of traveling during winter, they decided to take the risk and covertly settled into the farm. Correct, it was Bai Bu Yang and his friend, the one who owns that small courtyard. The people dispatched by the eldest prince were under orders to kill them, so we rescued them first. How could the people from the eldest prince's manor compete against the elite forces of the Gu family's army? This battle was easy, and we were able to bring them back unscathed. As she listened, Yu Fu started clapping. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly heard a commotion from the courtyard. Eldest brother, where's little Yu Fu? Where did she get hurt? It was Gu Yi's voice. The servant standing guard outside watched Gu Yi in a daze. Behind him were Lian Zhu and Lian Bai. Even further behind them, Gu Huaijiang led Gu Jiugu and the other young sirs of the manor. Some of the military officers had also come. The large group's arrival left the servant in a confused daze. Yanjing anxiously gestured at him, why aren't you getting out of the way? Don't you see that the head general has come? Yu Fu nearly leapt up, her face bright red, you absolutely must not let head general and the others come in. Gu Shubai strode over to the door and was also given a fright upon seeing Gu Huaijiang and the rest of the group. Subconsciously, he closed the door behind him. Gu Yi looked toward the door, eldest brother, is little Yu Fu in your room? Quickly let us go in and see how she is. Yanjing said that she lost a lot of blood. Father was worried sick. Gu Shubai shot a glare at Yanjing. Yanjing was dissatisfied with this, young general, what are you glaring at me for? How exactly is the young miss? Everyone looked at Gu Shubai, and Gu Huaijiang said, Shubai, why are you stopping us out here? How's Yu Fu? Father, there's no need to worry. Yu Fu's is fine. He partially opened the door, Lian Zhu, Lian Bai, you two go in. Yu Fu needs you two to take care of her. Lian Zhu and Lian Bai were so worried that they were on the verge of tears. Hearing him say this, they rushed inside. Gu Yi wanted to follow them in but was dragged out by someone pulling on his clothes. Yu Fu is fine. None of you are to go in. Wait outside the courtyard. I have something to discuss with father. Gu Huaijiang pondered this for a moment. If something had truly happened to Yu Fu, Gu Shubai would not have stopped them outside and refused to allow them in. There had to be some other reason. He waved his hand, Jiugu, take your younger brothers and the troops outside and wait outside the courtyard. Gu Jiugu cast a worried look toward the room but could not see anything. He had no choice but to follow these orders, yes, father. After everyone left, Gu Shubai let out a sigh, while Gu Huaijiang gave him a suspicious look. He did not know how to talk to Gu Huaijiang about this matter. No matter how he thought about it, it was a bit strange for two grown men to talk about a young girl's monthly problem. But if he did not say anything, Gu Huaijiang would surely be unable to calm down. Gu Shubai carefully picked his words, Father, it's like this. Yu Fu isn't actually hurt. Yanjing, that idiot, just saw that Yu Fu was bleeding and started crying and causing a commotion. In truth, there are times when it's possible to bleed without getting hurt. Bleed without getting hurt. Visit Wuxia World. EU for extra chapters. Gu Huaijiang was unable to follow this train of thought and just frowned at Gu Shubai. The latter bit the bullet and tried once more. There are some things that girls go through that we men can't understand, but father just needs to understand that she's fine. Oh, so it's like that. Then take good care of Yu Fu. No, if she can't move, call all of the Western Wing's grannies and maidservants here to take care of Yu Fu. Though the two of you are engaged, you still haven't gotten married. You should avoid some taboos. As he finished speaking, his expression was a little strange. It looked as if his skin was a little red. Suppressing a smile, Gu Shubai lowered his head and cupped his hands. Yes, son understands. While Yu Fu is here, son will move into the rear courtyard and will not affect her reputation. As long as you understand. Gu Huaijiang hesitantly exited the courtyard. The large group of people waiting outside looked at him with wide eyes, waiting for him to give them an answer. Head General, how exactly is the young miss? The one who rushed to ask was Yan Jing, and Gu Huaijiang rolled his eyes at him. Next time, if you don't know what's happening, report discreetly. Who told you to make such a big commotion out of this? If everyone knew about Yu Fu's monthly problem, it would be too absurd. Yanjing felt aggrieved. Head General, if you wish to scold me, I don't dare to argue, but you must allow me to die knowing why. What's going wrong for me today? First, the young general yelled at me, and now I'm being scolded by Head General. A strong hand suddenly reached from behind his head and grabbed his collar, dragging him back. Yan Zheng was completely defenseless. Yan Huasher held him by the collar while greeting Gu Huaijiang. Apologies, Head General. I'll take this foolish brat back and be sure to give him a good scolding. After saying this, he dragged Yan Jing away from the group. Gu Huaijiang dryly coughed a few times and saw that everyone had an expression of, so it was like that. Only Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were unable to tell what had happened. Gu Yi took a step forward. Father, this. What about this? Go and do what you should be doing. Have you finished looking over the topographical map of the hunting ground? No. Then quickly go and do it.